Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Welcome to another live with Hanifa Nayela. I am happy to see some of you guys in there, in here already. I say welcome to you, peace and blessings, and welcome to you. So, as usual, I am just going to go over a few house rules. If you are just joining for the first time, please make sure that you subscribe if you have not done so already. If you find at any point that this live is very interesting and need to be heard outside of just us here hanging out together, please feel free to share it. And let me see what else. And also, let me get back up here. This is going to be at the bottom throughout the show. So if you want to follow me on Instagram and you have not done so as yet, you can follow me at the real Hanifa Nayela on Instagram. And if for whatever reason you feel like you want to put something in the donation plate at some point in this broadcast, you are free to do so. My Cash App is at the bottom. It is $ Hanifa Nayela. All right. I am super excited, guys, to have this conversation. I've been wanting to have this conversation. I just haven't been able to figure out how I want to have the conversation. And because I tend to be a little bit on the long winded side, and I'm starting to do a lot of my lives by myself for that purpose because I want to make sure that I get all of my thoughts out. There is no time restraint on me. And I can actually engage you guys on that the level that I choose to. So that's for those of you guys that's wondering. I am trying to get away a little bit from panels. Not that I'm not going to ever do panels, I will. And I actually am open to doing panels and other people's pages, but my space, I am just what they say, adjusting it to my personality. And I tend to be a little bit on the chatty side and to not overwhelm anyone's no, to not overwhelm my guest. If it's something that I know I'm passionate about, I would prefer to talk about it by myself. But I'm never alone because you guys are always here with me. And speaking of you guys, let me see who we have in the chat thus far. Ashan says, "Yes, I am here for this one." And he gives me the hands up. I appreciate you, Ashan, as usual. You have definitely been one of my motivators, and I so appreciate you for that. Um, we have Inya. She says, "Hey, honey, for my favorite beat. I know that is actually a beat created by my husband. And I actually like it too. That's the one I chose by myself. He had a whole bunch to pick from, and that's the one that I chose. So yes, shout out to Ja Eyewitness for that beat. And I appreciate you as usual, Inya. Okay, I see you guys are shouting each other out. Um, oh, Ashan says a little groove. It really is. It really is. It's right up my alley. Nice little pace for me. Hey Rico. Rico, I am gonna reach out to you. I have something that's kind of been really weighing on me of late, and I wanted to kind of like process it with you. I couldn't think of anybody else. And so I want to hash through it, and I wasn't sure if I want to have the conversation online or have it in private with you first. And so I actually opted to have it in private with you first and then feel it out and see if it's something that you and I can talk about in the public. But I will be reaching out to you because it's kind of been weighing on me, and I need a vet. I need a vet to process it through with. And you came to mind. So expect me in your inbox at some point, Rico. Who else do we have in here? Let's see. Okay, you guys are shouting out each other. Okay. He says he's downstairs, and he says that he says to subscribe to him. This is the person, my husband, who made the beat. So um he is here plugging himself. I see my sister. Hey, Aisha. Thanks for passing through. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love my sisters. They're always very supportive of me. And I see Ray. Ray says Ray is in the building. Shout out to Ray. I think I will be seeing you tomorrow. No, actually, 2 Tuesdays from now. Thanks for joining, Ray. Glad that you are here. Um, let's see. Okay. So, guys, this topic is going to be a very interesting topic. As usual, my lines are always open. I will put the link in the, excuse me, I will put the link in the comment section for anyone. You might be feeling a little bit like, nah, I don't know about that, Hanifa. I don't know why I did that in a man voice, guys. Because it could be a woman who disagrees. Look at that. Look at that. But anyway, you might be feeling like, nah, I don't, agree with what you're saying, and that's okay. And you could disagree from the comment section, which is what you guys usually do. Or you can disagree, come up to the stage and just have the conversation. That's why he said in the comments, let's talk about it. I'm here for diverse um you know lines of thinking, because that's how we grow. This is solely my opinion. Okay, these opinions are just places that I have found rest in, and I like to tell people I do not reside in this opinion. I am just there right now, and I say that because I do understand that we are ever evolving beings, and a lot of us, we have changed our minds over time. And I see myself no differently, that 10 years from now, I may not hold the same view, because I might come into contact with some different information, or some more new information that just broadens my consciousness. And I feel like that's how all of us should approach living in general. Okay. We are not finished. We are not done growing. We should always be open to new information. So that's kind of the motto I live by. Rico is already in here. Okay. Rico says shaming generally is negative. Women, men, children. Shaming is counter and rarely ever effective at getting the desired change. And we are going to get into that. All right. So the reason why I decide to tackle this topic, and I'm gonna keep Rico's thing on the thing. The reason why I decided to tackle this particular topic is because there's a lot of chatter happening around, of course, people talking about the so-called gender war. And where some people will say it's a myth, it's not a real thing, it's only a real thing online in social media. And let's just say that uh a lot of minds are being shaped by social media, whether we find social media to be reality or not. I call it an alternate reality. Nonetheless, it is a reality to a lot of people. And a lot of our young people are using TikTok, they're using Instagram, they're using Twitter. And this is information. This is what media is. And this is the purpose that media serves, right? Is to shape minds, is to inform. Sometimes is to inform you in the direction that they wish for you to go in, right? And so I don't minimize any source of media. I just don't do it, because someone is being influenced by that avenue, right? By that particular avenue of media. So to minimize it simply because you see it that way, we can't forget that the generations behind us, whose minds are being molded and shaped, right, by these particular platforms and so forth, because that is their source of news these days, if we're really going to be honest, right? And so there's a lot of chatter around that. And specifically in the YouTube space, there's a lot of conversation, because what I'm finding is that you have black men and black women, or men and women in general, trying to really come up with different ways as to how we can get along better, right now. Some people are a little bit harsh in their approach, and some people are a little bit too passive in their approach. And then you have some of us that's kind of like, treading the line. We're in the middle somewhere. Okay. But what I'm observing is that I think that most people genuinely want to figure this out. So they are coming up with many different solutions. Okay. And so I think last week we talked about the focus suddenly on marriage. And the reason why is because a lot of people really believe that marriage is the answer to the issues that are plaguing us as a collective. And I say to that, marriage is one answer, right? It's probably a word within an answer. Okay, within a sentence. Like, it's not the solution, right? And because our issues are so nuanced and so multi-layered, there cannot be just one solution, right? But I am happy that we're actually trying to come up with different solutions. So this is not a knock on anyone. The more recent one that I've been noticing is we need to bring back shame. I've heard a lot of that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we really discussing? So this is sort of why I've been wanting to talk about this, because I think that the shame approach is really would be counterproductive, and it will really set us back. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. All right. So, Ashan, before I start, I'll just go through you guys' comments. He says, that's what I struggle with, free expression versus what I know to be harmful. Correct. I think we all do, Ashan. No judgment there. Rico says, for far too many, too much weight and emphasis is given to social media. Some young folks have zero counter to social media, so it becomes the every. Absolutely, that's the generation that we're in. All right, give thanks. Oh, you got a sub. All right, okay. Um, Ashandi, yes, and keep placing a high emphasis of responsibility of expression. Free expression cannot be free from responsibility. I love that, Rico. I agree with you. Okay, so I am going to get into this. Okay, so as you guys can see, my topic today deals with bringing back shame. Okay, now here's the two issues I have within my own topic today, right? Okay, so we're gonna start off with the back. Just the idea of back bothers me, right? And I'm gonna explain to you guys why. So the topic is the problem with shaming women back into their place. And I have an issue with the back, the word back in that topic, because when I hear people say that women need to get back into their place, my initial response, I don't vocalize it, but within myself, the first thing I say is, well, how far back are we going? How far back are we willing to go when we say that? How far back are you wanting to go? Are you wanting to go as far back as you have benefited? Right? Or are you willing to go as far back as where society's the position of the woman were completely different during that time? So how far back are we talking about? Because if we're talking about as far back as the patriarchy, okay, because and when I say patriarchy is a system. It is a system. And this is what I'm learning. We really have to learn to separate systems from individuals, right? We have to figure out a way to do that. So I'm not talking about individual men when I speak here. I'm talking about the system of patriarchy. Okay. I see some new people. Hey Taki, thanks for passing through. Taki said far. Okay, Taki said far back. My ad, peace passing through while at the gym. Peace, my ad. Thank you for coming through, mama. Appreciate you always. So when I hear let's go back, my first thing is back. Because if you're talking about when that system of patriarchy was introduced, we're talking about what, less than 10,000 years ago? Because the system of patriarchy as we know it, where women are technically second class citizens, or where, that time maybe 50 years ago, a little bit over 50 years ago, where women could not work, where uh certain positions, certain things women could not do. She was pretty much, her place was in the home, taking care of the children and dependent upon her husband. In fact, as far as having to take on his last name, okay? That's not the way it's always been. So when we say we need to put women back, I want us to be clear on what back means to us. And usually, the people who are saying this just happen to be men, right? And it lets you know that we know for a fact we are not talking back when there were matrilineal societies or matrilocal societies. And we're going to get into that as well. When men say it, they are talking about a time where they, right, benefited the most from women being in a certain position in society. Okay. And we're going to get into shaming. We're going to get into shaming and how ineffective shaming is. Okay. But I want to build to that. So when we talk about back, are we talking about when there were matrilineal and matrilocal societies? Because those existed before what we know today, way before. So if I was to give you it in an analogy or in layman terms, patriarchy as the system, right, is only about 10,000 years old. So let's count every year as every 1,000 years as a year. That would make it about a 10-year-old child. But when you're talking about matrilineal and matrilocal societies, you're talking about almost 90,000 years before there was even a patriarchy. So 90,000 years, if we were to say count 1,000 year as 1 year, that's a 90-year-old. So we're talking about a child, the system of patriarchy, in comparison to a great grandmother, matrilineal, matrilocal societies. This is really what we're talking about. So when people say back, we are not talking about going that far back, are we? We're not. We're not. It's very interesting because because most of us, almost all of us, because we're talking thousands of years, we're talking centuries past. Okay. This is all we know. The system of patriarchy is all we know. We're born into it. We are socialized by it. We are educated by it. We work for it. We keep it going, right? Because that is all we know. There are a lot of women and men that do not know that before patriarchy, there were systems and there were societies functioning, flourishing, that existed that were not patriarchal societies. A lot of people don't know that. So then once you find that out, then you start asking questions. Then what happened? And then you get into a whole other perspective, other way of thinking, other way of understanding the world that you live in. So I have an issue with the back. In let's put women back into their place. Okay? There was a time where people did not see. Yes, Rico, I'm coming to that too. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. There was a time that Rico says, let me just okay. Rico says some still exist today. I'm coming to that. Ray, I see your comment. I'm coming to it. I'm coming to you guys. Trust me. But there was a time where, and I talked about the gendering of God last week as well. There was a time where, when you talk about the divine, you're talking about feminine, like Inanna. It's like Isis. Like these were household names. Anthropologists right, have proven this over and over and over, that before there was a patriarchy, there existed matrilineal, matriarchal societies flourishing, right? Flourishing. Okay, the evidence is out there, right? The research is out there. So there was a time where the divine was seen as she, not he. Okay, when priests, those who dealt in spiritual practices, were mostly women. Okay, when I talk about matrilineal, I'm speaking about the lineage and the inheritance. It came through the mother. And Rico just said, in some societies, that means that this thing that we have now, where our children receive the last name of their father, was not always a thing. And by the way, there are still societies, like Rico said, today that still function like that, right? There are residues of history all over the place. You can't wipe out but so much. You know how they say there's no perfect crime? You can't wipe out but so much, because there are residue of these truths in so many different cultures. And that's why it's important to kind of like, learn about other cultures. So there was a time when we say matrilineal, that means that the lineage came through the mother. Okay, when we say matrilocal, that means that the women were the ones who inherited the land. Okay, that's what we're talking about when I use those terms. So once I learned this, I used to be the person where if I see someone give their children their last name, I used to be like, oh, the ghetto. I swear I did. I did, y'all. I did. And once I learned this information some time back, I don't even make a big deal about it anymore. It just is what it is. If there's a family and they agree to that, now there are mothers who do it because whether it's out of spite or the man is not claiming the child, because both happens. Sometimes there's abandonment and sometimes there's just spite, where the woman is like, I'm going to lay my claim to this child, right? But that's not so foreign. It really isn't. And so it's not something to make a big deal out of, right? So again, when I think of matriarchal or societies that have matriarchal leanings, okay, the emphasis to me is on equal footing, right? I'm not envisioning a society where women are there's a matriarchy, but a matriarchy where it's like patriarchy in reverse, where men or women are the dominant one over men. That's not the picture that comes to my mind. The picture that comes to my mind is more of an egalitarian society, right? Where people still have their roles and their functions. And I like to say functions because I believe that men and women are created to do certain functions. And that's just the truth, because biologically, I mean, just the way that a man is made up, the way he's built, and the way that a woman is made and the way she's built, it lets you know that. Nature informs us of that. Nature informs us of that. So there's no fight in that, right? The key is honoring it. The key is saying, yes, you were, built for this function. I'm going to stay away from the word created, but I could say created for lack of a better term. But you were created for this function, and I was created for this function, right? That does not mean that you are superior because you have more muscles. That's not the purpose of these functions. It just isn't. And I think we're getting into a lot of that split way of thinking. Um, okay. So I try to stay away from that as much as possible. So when I envision a society, I envision an egalitarian society, more of like a partner-oriented society, than anything else, because that's also the way I approach relationships anyway. Okay. um More cooperative, like a less combative world. I think that that's probably the best solution, and I think it works for everyone involved. All right, so I'm going to get into these comments real quick before I move on to Yes, Rico. So Rico says, have you given any thought to shunning over shame? I believe we as a society should shun certain behaviors, not people, without shame. If others see we don't condone, it can motivate modification. And I want to say, if Rico, if you can explain to me what shunning, okay, shame and shunning. Thank you for that because it just made me real. I was gonna say if you could tell me the difference, and it just hit me. There is a difference. Um, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I think it has to start within the family, though, where shunning has to begin in the family. And there are people who will strip their heirs of their family name if they violate the code of the family. That still exists today. So I could see how shunning might be able to work because there are some societies where shunning is a thing. And that's a good point, Rico. So in my solution piece, I was going to say what is an alternative to shaming, and we're going to get into that. I'm going to add shunning, and we can delve a little bit deeper into that as well. So thank you for that, Rico. Ray says when men benefit, then women benefit in the long term. So marriage and hunter-gatherer strategies ultimately is a win for women. Is that so? When men benefit, then women benefit in the long term. Explain that to me, Ray. And again, I'm gonna put the link in the chat if you guys want to come up. If you don't want to, be on here wearing your fingers out trying to type your comment. How do women benefit in the long term? Because we are in the long term. We are in the long term right now. And there's a lot of damage that has been done. And I actually think the feminist movement is a response to that. An extreme one, nonetheless, it's a response to it. So I feel like we're in the long run right now. We're in the long term right now. And we see the damage that it has done. And I just want to be very clear the system of patriarchy does not just harm women, it has harmed men as well. It has forced men to show up in a very inauthentic way. It has forced men to wear masks, to be afraid of being vulnerable in any capacity, even when the space is safe to do so. Right? It has defined masculinity in an extremely hyper masculine way, machoism instead. Right? So it has done some harm to the idea of manhood as well. So when I hear women talk about the damage that is done to women, I feel like there is so much damage that have been done to men as well. Even the way we socialize boys, the system of patriarchy have dictated that. This is how boys are socialized, and this is how girls are socialized. Because why? It is to keep the system the way it is. It's to maintain it. Okay. So it says so marriage and hunter-gatherer strategies ultimately is a win for women. Okay. Shaming is the best way to get men and women to do right. No, Ray, absolutely not. I completely disagree. I think that there's other ways to go about getting people to do quote unquote, like you just put in quotes, do right. Shaming is not one of them because here's the thing. I'm going to get into shaming just now. I just want to make sure I cover you guys comments as well. So before I get ahead of myself, let me go through the comments. Rico, yes, some still exist today. You have some tribes in. Let me go through the comments because I'm going through. Okay. Shaming is purely damaging. Yes, just as much as it is damaging to a child, it is damaging to an individual, period. There's nothing good about shaming. Rico, the emoji, yes, Rico. I was gonna say Kenya is one of them. Ray says shaming can be used for good or bad. So the good for me in shaming, Ray, is that you're gonna get the outcome you want, which is ultimately to get the person to behave in the manner that is most comfortable for you, right? Or for the collective, for the image of the collective, right? So that's the only good. I don't want to act like shaming doesn't work. Shaming works, but it also damages. Shaming works, but at what cost? Right? Shaming is more focused on control than the whole of the individual, right? Shaming has everything to do with the shamer and less to do with the shamee, because it is the person who is shaming right? That has the issue, that wants to fix it, that wants to have some sort of control, right? So then now they project onto that person. So you can get the outcome in shaming that you want. So maybe that could be seen as a good, but the bad is at what cost? What is the damage that's being done when we use shame as a tool? Okay, Rico is listing the tribes. Thank you, Rico. He says the Akan people in Ghana, the Kasi people in India. It goes on and on and on. Yes, Rico. Thank you for the knowledge. And he says, you think you have one Bribri people in Costa Rica are all matriarchy. I didn't know. Those are new to me, Rico. I don't know anything about the Bribri people. Shunning is what the Amish do, where they are completely cut off. I think, yeah, I would agree with that. Yes, yes, that is shunning. So Rico gave me a different perspective on that. So I want to get into why shaming ultimately sucks. Okay, why I think shaming is just whack and it's just not a good approach to getting the outcome that you want from women. And we're speaking about women in particular in this particular segment, or the outcome that you desire from any individual, man, woman, child. Okay. All right. So let's talk about shame, right? And what exactly is shame? Listen to all of the negative words to describe shame. Okay. It's a painful emotion. Painful emotion caused by what? The consciousness of guilt. Guilt, right? It's something that brings reproach. Reproach. We're talking about pain, guilt, reproach, hurt. These are all the words that's used to describe what shame is. Okay? Now, how and why do we use shame? Why do some of us think that shame is necessary? Why do we think so? All right. So for me, shame is used as a tool of control. And a lot of the conversations, I'm talking about the very aggressive conversations that I've observed with the men who are saying, let's bring shame back. Okay. It's almost like saying, I want to hurt you without leaving a scar. I want to hurt you without leaving a scar. Because a lot of the conversations and a lot of rhetoric, a lot of it is bordering abusive. A lot. A lot of the way that the men talk to the woman in these spaces is borderline, if not abusive. And it's solely based on I am a man and you are a woman. You are beneath me. You are less than me. Simply because you're probably less stronger than me, physically stronger than me. So therefore, that means that I dominate you. Okay? So shame is often used as a tool of control. Shame never nourishes the relationship between the shamer and the shamee. It never does. So if you're about building, community, if you're about healing the wound amongst the collective, if you're about bridging the gap between Black men and Black women, then shaming is probably not the most effective tool. Okay? So why is it not the most effective tool? Because when you shame, it doesn't nourish the relationship between the person who is shaming and the person who is being shamed. In fact, the person being shamed ends up losing respect or holding contempt towards the person doing the shaming. So I actually think using shame as a tool is actually going to do more damage to the relationship between Black men and Black women than actually help it. Because using shame as a tool is a very selfish method. It has more to do with fixing how you feel. Okay, someone fixing themselves so that you can stop feeling the way you feel versus being a little bit empathetic and working towards a holistic kind of healing for that individual. Okay, I already told you, we are lazy in our relationships, like getting to know each other. We're very lazy, and this is why people throw like a blanket over the group as a whole. It's just easier to do that. It's easier to do that. It's harder to show empathy, because to show empathy, you have to be willing to understand people's story. And pretty much the society we live in is like a hit and go. Like, look, when we ask each other, when we say hi, hey, and we say how you doing is not a genuine question. It's literally a greeting. It's like, hi, how you doing is like the bye after the hi. When we ask each other how you're doing, we don't really mean it. And this is how we approach our relationships now. So we're very lazy when it comes to building healthy relationships between each other. We're very lazy. And so it's easier to lump everyone in, right? And put everyone in one pot and cook. It's just easier to do that, right? What else do I want to say about shame before I come check you guys out? Shame does not make the individual, and I guess that's the purpose. It makes us feel terrible about ourselves, right? It makes the person feel like they are a stain or a problem, right? That they were born a problem. Okay, there are adults right now that have stories, right, of things that they do as adults that shame created in them when they were children. Whether it's the adults around them shaming them because that's the tool that they choose. Okay, it's not like a deliberate pain. I'm trying to harm my child. It's like I'm trying to get my child to do what I need them to do. And so people have used shame for a long time in their style of parenting, and a lot of parents still do it because it's like, I need to get this child to do what I need them to do, so I'm just going to say whatever, right? You have people right now who, you know, are ashamed of like their smiles, and you're like, what's wrong with your smile, looking at them as an adult. And when you hear the stories, the adults around them that, you know, made comments, or if they did something wrong. I know the story of this girl who, because so her mom used to make her sit at the table until she finished everything on her plate. And a lot of people don't even realize how that contributes to like eating disorders, where people end up overeating. So she gives the story of when she actually became overweight because of it, because it's this idea of, I have to finish everything on my plate. I have to finish everything on my plate. Even if it's like a big plate, I'm going to sit here until I finish it. So those are just some example of like the effect that shame can have on people when they become adults because of things that were said to them as children. So shame in that capacity does more damage than good. All right? Shame is easy. It's easy. It's easy, but it's damaging. It's just easy. It's something easy to do so that you can, it's the easiest way to get the outcome that you're looking for. And I keep saying, I'm saying lazy. I don't like easy. I'm going to keep saying it's lazy. It's a lazy approach. Okay? When you shame someone, you're saying to them they aren't worthy of love and respect unless they do things the way that you want them to do it. You can't build relationship from that angle. You just cannot. And I'm going to say the idea of using shame to get women back in these subservient roles that y'all so desire, it's going to backfire. It already has. This is what you're dealing with right now. It's not going to work, right? I feel like where women are at right now, as a whole, it's almost like, you know, when people will say, I just want to go back to normal. This is after the pandemic and everything. I want to go back to normal. And I'm like, what normal? We're never going back to quote unquote normal. And I say that to those men. It's never going to happen. First of all, the societies that we live in, look at the direction we're going into, right? AI is about to take over all of this joint. What does that look like for men and women? These are things we have to think about, right? Look at how the societies function as to why patriarchy got a foothold. Look at when it became, once men, right, became the ones that, once it became patrilineal, let me put it that way, meaning that the lineage came through the man. So then now men figure, all right, this is where we get monogamy and marriage. Oh Lord. Okay, I hate to talk about this because people start to think that I'm polygamous. I am not polygamous. Let me just put that out there. Okay. But this is where you end up the introduction of monogamy and control through marriage and so forth. Because here's the thing, now that it's patrilineal and the child is going to take on my last name, I need to make sure that the child is actually mine. I need to make sure that the child is actually mine. So how do I go about doing that? I'm going to push for monogamy. One woman to a man, one man, one woman together. She's going to take on my last name, and the children are also going to take on my last name. And then it evolves into woman being property eventually. Okay? So there's a lot of history there that I think a lot of us need to really get acquainted with, both men and women, not just women. I am someone who, I am not a feminist. I do not subscribe to feminism in that way. However, and I'm going to show you guys some of the books that I've read as well or been reading. I do indulge in some of, it depends, some of their literature, because I believe that there's truth in everything, right? And we can never find the whole truth in one thing. I'll say that one more time. I believe that there's truth in everything, and we cannot find all of the truth in one thing. So it's good to open up and explore other literature and things that is outside the scope of your thinking, right? Or the conclusion that you've come to. All right. I'm going to go through a few more things with shame. Shaming makes it about us and our self-righteousness and feelings of superiority. It takes the need for you to face and process your feelings away and focus it instead on someone else's behavior. Okay. Shame also is a way to control the other person by using their deeply ingrained need for connection to threaten them with disconnection, because all of us have an innate need to connect with other people. So in a sense, shame is actually genius, right? But it's also very damaging. So I'm going to go through the chats before I move on, because I see you guys are going off in the chat, and I'm going to put the link in the thing, in the section, in the chat as well. Okay. So let me make sure. Okay, so Rico says shame creates a playing field of conflict, not resolution. Rico, I am 100% there with you, and that's my point. If you are about building real, organic, healthy relationship between men and women, then shame is not the route you want to go. It's just not. It's just not. Not in this context. Not if you are all about men dominating women or women dominating men, and in this case it would be men if that's your focus, if when you say women need to get back in their place, you mean that they need to get beneath a man, then yes, you are definitely going to see shame as a good tool to use, because you're not about building the relationship, right? You're not about the balance. You're about the imbalance. And I wanted to also say, when I hear women need to go back, one of the things that bothers me about that is this. Patriarchy is a very one-sided system, and anything that is one-sided and imbalanced is unhealthy, right? When you don't have a balance in your body, it creates sickness in your body. Okay? When you don't have balance in your thinking, it creates like you become unstable in your thinking. All right. So when people say back, what makes me sad is that they don't even realize that what they're asking for is imbalance. When you say we need to put women back into their place, we need to go back to the way it was, what you are actually advocating for is imbalance. And the reason why you don't realize that is because the patriarchal system have existed for thousands of years, and it's all we know. And when you're born into a cultural norm, right, That is just how it is. So you sometimes, unless you do research or whatever, you just don't even know that this right here is not healthy. And that's what I see with us as a collective. Oftentimes, there's a lot of cultural norms that we have that's actually keeping us sick. But because it's normalized, right, we think that that's the way it's supposed to be. Because no one is bothering to check, no one is using their critical thinking, no one is tapping into the creative dimension, right, or accessing those dimensions to get the information as to what is the best and healthiest way to approach this. And again, if you are fine with it being lopsided, then yes, shame is going to be seen as the most effective tool to you. But to me, somebody who believes in balance and egalitarian and in a harmonious function between feminine and masculine, because that is how they operate in nature, somebody like me who is more about the balance and not domination and subjugation, I cannot advocate for shame. In good conscience, I cannot. Okay? All right. So Rico says, I'm going to move on. Shame equals judgment, which equals conflict. Exactly. Exactly. You are not going to gain the respect of women by shaming them. It will not happen. It will not happen. And if you are so set on shaming women, what is the next step when women do not respond to the shame? What is your next step? Because shame is how I want to say this. Shame is a form of violence, right? It is a form of violence against the individual expression or individuality or the humanness of an individual. And I say humanness there, the humanity of a person, meaning it is violence against that person's right to make mistakes, to mess up, to still have to grow, to evolve. It's a violation against that. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep going. Danik. Hey, Danik. He says, great day. Peace to the chat and party. Peace to you, Danik. Thanks for the support. Thanks for always passing through. Ashan said, I think it should be an internal driver to know when you failed your own standards. We shouldn't shame another person. That's a good point. I would, you know what? Let me go ahead and put this stuff because y'all are here. So let me just go ahead and put this in the chat for anyone that wants to join the conversation because I want to make sure I go over you guys' comments. Okay, so here is the link if anyone wants to come up. I am posting the link in the chat if you want to come up and just have the conversation with me. Ashan, that's a good point. That's a good point. But I'm going to go to what Genesis said because I feel like that's connected to your point. He says some people have no shame. No shame, it can be an ineffective approach. But here's and that's the other part of it too. Yeah, you can't shame the shameless. And that's why I said, what happens when the shame tactic doesn't work? What happens? What are we going to escalate to? The handmaiden's tale? We're going to start muzzling women? We're going to start locking them? What's the next step after that? When the shame doesn't work? Because truth be told, women are getting to a point in our society where they don't even have a decorum of themselves. They don't even have a code of conduct. They just don't even care. And this is where I'm talking about the backfiring. Because no, women are like, we don't care what men have to say about us. So when that doesn't work in the collective, what are we doing? And I think that goes back to Rico's point with the shunning. The issue with the Black collective is that we don't have a code of conduct. What is our code of conduct? What is it? Where's the standard? Who is the standard? Because we have our men saying on one end, these are the types of women they want, right? And on the other end is the opposite of that they're entertaining. So where is the standard and who is upholding it? So where's the code of conduct? Where do we find it? Right? So it boils down to, how are you shaming the shameless? Because women have become numb to the grievances or the complaints of men. And the reason why is because women have been subjugated for so long. for thousands of years. And so now it has hit its climax, and women are now numb and could care less what men have to say. So, how are we shaming the shameless? And that goes to, what Genesis just said. Sean, it's internal. It wouldn't be shame, but reflection. That's a good point, Rico. I disagree at Rico. It's a feeling. Shaming is trying to project that feeling into another person. So, Sean, I wish for that, I'm kind of like still grappling with your point, because I was like, okay, where does our internal moral compass come from? Right. And I think it comes from two things. I think that it comes from your own inner wisdom, but it also comes from um the teachings from the adults around you, right? So when you talk about people need to be in a sense, you're saying guided by, right, their own moral compass. So how does that work for the collective? How do we, or should we? That's the question. I was going to say, how do we get everyone on the same page, or should we not be concerned about getting everyone on the same page? That's just a question I'm throwing out there, because your comment is, kind of have me thinking as well. So I'm still kind of processing that. Okay, Rico. Okay, so they're having a conversation. Okay, let me see. Ray says, when a man is a lazy bum. Okay, I'm sorry. Ray, when a man is a lazy bum, other men shame them to make them get off their asses and work. Shame helps us move forward. And that's what I said. Shame doesn't not work. I'm not saying it does not work. It does. I'm not saying it does work. It does. But how effective is it? So I guess your focus is, as long as he gets up and go get a job, we don't care about the damage that's done. So we don't care about saying, get your lazy fat bum ass up, right? Insults, insults, right? We don't care about the damage those insults are doing to the spirit of that person. We only care that the person gets their lazy fat bum ass up and go work. Is that what we're saying? Because that's what I'm against. Because now you have a working individual with a broken spirit. And that same individual is expected to be coupled with a woman, right? And then now we talk about the conflict between men and women, because we're talking about broken spirits coming together. So that's what I mean. What is the long-term effect of that? I get it. I am not saying that shaming does not work. Shaming works. It will probably give you the outcome that you want, but at what expense? So do we not care about the individual? As long as the collective gets what the collective wants, which is to maintain the status quo or to maintain the image of the collective? That's just a question I'm throwing out there. Okay. Okay. Ashan is talking to Rico. I love this conversation you guys are having. Okay. So, Ashan, go back up. Guys, I'm just learning how to use this. Okay. All right. Rico asked Ashan, so if you do a bad act and then shame yourself for doing it, doesn't that make you bipolar? Rico, it does not. Stop it. Stop it. Rico, stop it. Okay. Ashan said that's what I mean by bring shame back. People should have standards they hold themselves to, right? And feel negatively when they don't live up to it. Find methods to do better to avoid negative emotions. So are you saying, Ashan, right? How does that factor in having a standard for the collective? Are you saying that that's not necessary, or should we just have individual standards, because that can create some chaos in itself? So talk to me about that, because I'm still kind of like having mixed feelings about what you're saying. Rico, give me 1 second. I see you back there, sir. Rico says, I get what you were saying 100%, but I view that as reflection. When I look back on my behavior, PR actions, and do not find favor. Okay. Okay. And Ashan say, understood. OG Patrice in the building. Ooh, that's a fly picture, Miss OG Patrice. All right, girl. You look really beautiful. I'm such a softie. I'm sorry. You look gorgeous, Mama. Good to see you. Thanks for passing through and showing support. But that profile picture is fire, Mama. I love it. Okay, let me bring Mr. Rico in. Hey, Rico.
Hey, Hanifa. Great.
How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Great topic. Glad to hear a lady of wisdom speak on it. It's just, it's something that probably needs to be said, talked about. And I've just found this whole shaming thing to be silly, to be honest. I just don't. For me, I guess I'll just say this is I think even if I try to shame you, and I've done it with my adult sons, and I realized just how terrible it was. You only get a person to modify their behavior temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
They basically, like my kids were like, I'm just gonna do whatever it takes for this nigga to shut up. And really, and so it doesn't make the desired change. And I get it. I've been frustrated. Probably the biggest failures I made it with was with my children. Being a parent, you so much want to get them to do things, and if they're just not going to do it, but and of course, I grew up in a space where shaming and corporal punishment and physical abuse is the go-to. So it was just like those were my triggers. But when I look back on it, I was just like, me, even at my advanced age, even at work, when people try to shame me at work, I'm instantly like, I'm about to catch a case. I'm about to put my hands on somebody. No one receives it well.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing well to be, even if a coworker is trying to belittle you, things like that to make light of the work that you're doing or your contribution. Yes. So when and I see the things in the chat where people say, yeah, you're going to get the person to respond to the shame.
Absolutely.
But that response to the shame is not necessarily the correction that you want. Generally, it's a short-term modification that they will do while they're looking for something else, because while the shamer may feel satisfied.
Thank you.
I feel satisfied I made Hanifa does something. And I feel good about it, but you don't. And then it's like, in the long term, if you don't feel better about, and I ain't looking like this even from the military. I'm like, in the military, they went to going away from shaming. Like they say, you don't dress down your soldiers in public. You might do it in private, because the thing is, it wasn't that, and back in the day, they used to cuss you out in front of everybody and nobody cared, this, that, whatever. But they realized that in the long term, you're doing more damage to the soldier. You're not building them up. You're tearing them down, and they were tearing down too many that you couldn't build up. And what you were building up is long-term resentment.
Yes.
In long term, they hate you. They hate you.
Yes.
And they're just sitting there, they're wishing you dead. And it's like, and that's just not a good thing. If you can't get through to them, fine, I get it. So for me, like I said, and it's just like the Amish. Shunning to me is where they do shun people. I try to, and unfortunately, it took me this long to kind of get around to. It's like, just shun the behavior. Leave a room for the person to say, like Hanifa, I don't like all that drinking. Boom, 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 boom. I'm not going to shun you, but I'm going to shun you when you have that behavior. You want to come around me and you don't want to be all fall down, pissy drunk, you can hang out, sister. When you that way, not today. Not today. Consistently shunning that behavior, so okay, when I come around Rika, he ain't putting up with this level of foolishness from me. So yeah, I love you. I don't love that behavior. That's just what I think. Because I think when you do the shaming, it's more damaging to the person, and it's not always attacking the behavior. Because there are behaviors that we need to, we need to do something with. Whether it's the drinking, the drugging, the swearing, and all other kinds of things. But and again, one thing I would say, these shamers, the people who call themselves to place themselves in a position of judging, 99.9% of them need to sit down and shut the fuck up.
Okay.
These are people who, so even if I said, okay, I'm gonna go with the concept of shaming, how am I being shamed by people that should be ashamed of themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And they're oftentimes not. So it's like, we're not gonna sit here and be judged by you, Hanifa. Or you drinking too much, but you smoking marijuana. Get out of my face. Or you're doing all sorts, and that's what you see in these spaces. You see people who should be ashamed of themselves trying to shame women. And I'm like, and you don't understand why women are rejecting you?
Yeah.
Or they're rejecting your position?
Yeah.
You're
That's
not
what I was going to say to you, Rico, when you talked about the resentment piece. That's what you're seeing with a lot of these extreme feminist thought processes is that is the result. That is a response to that. That is the resentment that you're speaking about, to where someone ends up going on the other extreme, right? To counter something that was an extreme. That's really what's happening. And like you said, in the space, you guys are not you guys, but like a lot of the men, they're talking about they want submission and all of these other things. And don't get me wrong, us as Black women, we have a lot of work to do on ourselves. We really do. Right. And I think that the reason why a lot of what Black women are having a difficult time, I think it's many different reasons. I think it's multi-layered. I think, a lot of us are just broken. I think a lot of us have no point of reference of healthy relationships. There's so many different factors, but I do know one of the factors is, though, you think that you're going to shame a woman into submission. And in this day and time, 2022, right, with all the rights and all of these things that women have been given, I wish you luck with that. That is going to backfire tremendously on you, because it already has. Go ahead, Rico. I see you on mute.
Like you're saying, because they don't. I mean, and people, and that's the one thing I say. I hear and see all of them attacking feminism. Right?
Yes.
Feminism. I'm like, but feminism, as you said, Hanifa, was the result of something.
Thank you.
That was already broken. If everything was great, feminism would never been able to take root. Why feminism was able to take root was there was decades of women dealing with adultery, domestic violence, abuse. I mean, just being second-class citizens. So feminism was a form of saying you can stand up and enjoy 100% your agency as a woman. And I'm like, call me a male feminist. I don't care. I don't see nothing wrong with that. I'm like, so especially when I see black men, because I'm like, well, hell, if you're against feminism, then I guess you support racism. You know what I'm saying? Because again, the same agency that women that chose to do, we as Black people chose to do. And look at all the fights and struggles, how they try. You want women to go back? They also want our Black asses to go back too.
So yes, that's a good point, Rico.
They would love for us to go back too and be in our place.
Yes, that's a very, very good point.
They
and
love that. Now, are you ready to sign up for that?
What the thought that came to my mind too is that specifically in these spaces, you hear a lot of the people talking about the Moynihan report. They talk
Moynihan
about
report.
Yeah, the Moynihan report.
And they don't know what the hell they're talking about because they
correct.
ain't read the whole thing.
Right, and then they talk also about like a lot of what comes up is the welfare replace the man. And here's my thought process with that, because it goes to something that you just said. That's what triggered the thought. In order for Black women, specifically in this society, we were forced, right, in a corner, right, by ourselves, right, and that's segregation. So we were forced to be just by amongst ourselves. Okay, so we had to work as a community, as a group. There were pros and there were cons. So when I hear this spoken of in these spaces, I always go to this thought process, because I know we've been broken as a collective for a very long time in this country, for a very long time. And so my first reaction is, I have a husband. So if somebody comes and says, I'm going to offer you this so that you could put this man out, Rico, there are only certain factors that will make me consider that. One of them would be that our relationship is already busted and jacked up, right? That's one. Or I already have no respect for him because of whatever stuff, damage, whatever has been done. Okay? That's two. Like it has to be, I don't think any woman in their right mind would do that unless it was like decide as a way out. And I'm not saying this was the case for everyone, but like maybe decide as a way out of a situation that was unhealthy. So it's not necessarily we replacing all the men. It's like, no, I would prefer to figure this out with this assistance than continue to be under your tutelage. That's go ahead, Rico.
They were completely dishonest about that narrative that they even told.
Right.
Well, yeah, and that's why I said, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe either these Negroes don't read or they have no comprehension skill. Because what the Moynihan report specifically talked about when they talked about the Moynihan scissors effect was there was an increase of women of color going on the welfare rolls with a severe decline of Black men being employed. So you're in the house with a husband. So what happened is your job, he loses his job.
Correct.
Now he's been out of work for 4 months.
Right.
You, John, and them 3 babies, and they're struggling, trying to keep the lights on. They cut the lights off. No food, no this, no that. When the government come along, job and like and no offense to job, but maybe during that time there was high unemployment. When white folk catch a cold, we catch pneumonia. We gonna get, so if they get 6% unemployment, we got 13-14% unemployment. Who's it gonna hit predominantly first? It's gonna hit Black men. So if you was a housewife and then now John's out of work and you relied on that income that he was bringing in, and he ain't bringing no income in, no unemployment, no nothing, and the government comes to say, hey, well, we're willing to assist women and children. That's it. We ain't assisting nobody else. All these men got to work. We willing to assist women or children. So you're faced with a choice because now you got to decide, am I going to choose job or am I going to choose my babies? Because you got children. And if he any kind of man anyway, which I think most Black men did.
Thank you. I was about to say that. Some of them actually, yes.
Because it's like, look, it's better, baby. I'd rather you and them kids have something because I ain't bringing no money in. I'm not.
Yeah. So that narrative.
And this was after white women had already been on it in droves as well. And I'm like, so stop telling this narrative that, because here's the thing. John's making $200 a week, right? So he bringing home $800 a month. Why are you going to take $200 a month over $800 a month if John got a job?
That's see, Rico,
if
that's what I'm
sitting his ass at home, not bringing no money. 200 is better than nothing.
Right. And not only that, putting in perspective how difficult those times were for men.
Yes,
how difficult those times are for men. Wait, hold up 1 minute, Ray. Ray, I just posted it. Wait, I just posted it in the comment section, Ray. I'm going to post it again. You just have to hit the link. That's all. I'm putting it in the comment section. No, I was saying, not also considering how difficult it was for men, right? Black men. During that time. So when I hear the narrative being spoken of, my mind goes, I always feel within myself that there's more to the story.
It's so much more to the story.
Right. And that's my thing. I'm like, I think there's like a lot of factors that are missing from this narrative. And I know why people don't want to sit and like literally start like dissecting it. It's because it pushes a certain narrative that they are kind of on board with right now. But for someone like me who have not chosen a side, right? I tend to try to dissect it, and it just never. I said this just does not sound right. Because even after that, there are so many Black women that I know who have supported men who have struggled, whether it's with employment, businesses. Like, we've always been very loyal to Black men. Now, is that shifting right now? I would say yes, I'm seeing a shift, but that has always been the case. So when I hear that narrative, I'm just like, something is telling me there's a little bit more, that there are things that are being left out of this story, and I'm not sure why.
Because Hanifa, you would have to suspend belief to say, I got a man who's bringing in $1,000 a month, $200 or $800 a month. I'm saying $800, right? Back in the 60s when it was done, that was considered a good income. Oh, this man bringing home $200 every week after, whatever. That's $800 a month. But I'm going to get rid of $800 a month for $200 a month.
Well,
how stupid does
Rico,
a black woman have to be for that math to make sense?
Okay, so here's the thing. The thing is, okay, so here's my thing. I do think that there are some women who use it as an opportunity to take on the independence mindset that was slowly creeping into the American society. I think there is a part of the collective of women. Wait, hold up, Rico. Wait, hold up. I think there are some who did that. I think there are some who did it to escape abusive situations.
Correct.
I think there are people who did it for many different reasons. But to take and say black women as a whole, kick the black man out the household, right, and replace them with welfare, it's just intellectually and historically disingenuous.
And
I feel that way about that. Go ahead, Rico.
And here's what I'm saying is, so you're Hanifa. You're a middle class black wife with a husband, roughly middle class, right? You're going to choose to be independently poor rather than be dependently middle class.
But Rico, the answer to that is yes. If there is a legitimate reason to do so, that's my point.
There are people, drug abuse.
Yes, and because Rico, in history, there are people, men and women, who did whatever they had to do
to escape,
to get out of exactly. So in other words, let's think of some of our ancestors and some of these plantations, right? All right. They were taking a risk when they have to go out there and fend for themselves, whereby before they were scraps. You get what I'm saying? They were still getting a meal. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. So
when they say I'm going to leave this plantation, they're saying I'd rather go out there and fend for myself and figure this out because my freedom is more important than stay here and be like, well, at least we getting fed. At least you get what I'm trying to say? So
absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying. It's more of it's such for me, it's such an exaggeration. And I think that we need to really like dissect it and analyze it and have like a genuine conversation about it. Like, look at us. Don't look, it's almost like we talk about this like it was some like story that never happened, like a fairy tale, right? Like this thing that just happened and it's separate from us. No, we are dealing with the residual effects of that today. So my thing is, if we're going to discuss it, let's be critical in our thinking about it. Let's analyze it. Let's use common sense when we have the conversation versus pushing a narrative that the black woman is just so set against the black man. And this is what they did. You're right. So you're extracting, right, parts of the story that fits your narrative because you have an agenda. And it is not to build a collective. It's not to bridge the gap. That's not your agenda.
Right. And when you look at it, when you ask them, so the narrative is, oh, the black woman took the welfare check over the black man. What evidence is there of that? Never anything. Never anything. Never anything. There's zero evidence. Someone just said it and they just went with it. And I'm like, I can show you demonstrably what was the unemployment rate of black men at the time that the welfare rolls started to increase year by year. So you see their employment decreased substantially and the women increasing on the welfare rolls substantially. And you see no correlation between the two. Okay, because if the black men are not working, then that means income is they're losing their job. That's income being lost. Where is it going to be replaced by? Because they're not getting jobs. And I don't even blame the black men at that time. I'm like, it just was the reality of what it was. Same way when we hit the Great Depression in 1920 something, and like 40% of the country was out of work. Shit just happened. But when it did happen, and black women had to make a hard choice for their children, That's the part when these black men keep saying that. I'm like, she chose her children. Most of you little bastards, that was your daddy. You know what I'm saying? That's how you got to be here, because she chose the survival of her children. She figured that man gonna make a way for himself one way or another. And if he don't, too damn bad. Her number one obligation, that black woman, is to her children any way necessary. So if unfortunately she had to take that government money with those restrictions, because you don't have a job to feed her children, to get the food stamps, to get the housing, what do you want her to be, on the damn streets? Because that's what it was before the Great New Deal, because during the Great Depression, and that's what I keep sitting there saying. That's why I'm so hard on guys about paying child support. I was like, because I don't want to have to pay for your fucking responsibility. You see, before laws like family law and child support, men would just sit there and kick the woman ass out on the street with the kids, and it's just too bad. You just beg. No one cared. There was no government institutions or things in place to protect women and children. So most of these institutions, whether it's welfare, food stamps, housing, child support, it was because prior to that, like you said before, men had all the control, women had zero, and women just got nothing. So as a society, we said we're tired of seeing women and children and old people eating out the trash and cannibalizing each other because they're starving. And that's why we created Social Security and things like that. As a society, we got tired of seeing it, because in other countries, old people and women, they don't have any social safety network. So when they out of work, them women is just out there on the street. That's why they prostituting themselves, and them old people doing what they're doing. Because in those countries, you know that, Hanifa, they don't have what America has. Where we put things, it's like shit on you.
Yeah, there's a lot of cushion in this country. That's why I always said, like, America has a poor people problem, but like poverty, like real poverty, there are too many cushions in place here for people to even get. And I'm not saying that people are not poor, but I'm talking about like for real poverty, where there are just not these systems in place in a lot of countries that people have here. Like you can not be employed and collect food stamp and unemployment and those things. There are people where in some countries that's not even a thing. If you're unemployed, you got to figure out a way to eat and try to find work again. Like there's nothing for you to go sign up for.
let me tell you a quick part that these men don't tell you. They get the shit too.
Of course.
See what I'm saying? Right? Yeah. Right? So like, oh, you're a big man, but you get that unemployment, you get them food stamps, you get that housing aid, we got men's shelter. What the fuck are y'all talking about?
Yeah, but Rico, to be fair. Yeah, but to be fair, when it comes to some of these services, women, there is definitely
more favored.
Yes, they're definitely more favored. Absolutely. Yes, but I agree. And yes, they're more favored.
Too many 25-year-olds running around here getting $150, $200 a month in food stamps, just getting all kinds of aid. And I'm like, and when I go to the DR, I'm like, none of that shit don't exist over there.
Because, but again, when I talked about the patriarchy as a system and how damaging it is to us collectively, not just to women, but to men as well. That's part of the damage right there. Where it's just like, why are you here trying to get assistance? You're not supposed to fall on hard time. You're a big old grown man. Men don't fall on hard times. What are you doing here?
I mean, literally, they do. And I'm sitting there saying, when I go overseas, I'm like, I watch 8-year-old kids standing in the middle of the highway, washing windshield, trying to help their mama and their grandmother feed the family. These are children overseas working harder than these Negroes here. Children. Children. I mean, real live 8, 9, 10-year-old kids out there begging and borrowing to feed themselves. And these grown men here, I'm like, if y'all don't shut your mouth, I don't care that the women got more favorable conditions.
Mhm.
Y'all ass ain't got it as bad as most places outside the
But Rico,
Crimea
to
River.
be fair, Rico, you're a traveled man. A lot of people are not that well traveled. A lot of people don't even have passports. And then when we narrow it down to black people, it becomes even less. And so they don't have anything to compare it to. So when you're saying that, oh, it's like this in other countries, all they know is what they feel right now in this society, and the struggle, and the, what I'm saying, like the
Yeah.
challenges that they're facing. They don't have anything else to compare it to. They really don't. But I wanted to get back, Rico, to the
Hmm.
shaman piece.
Yep.
And so what do you see in the future if this continue on? Because I'm just going to be honest with you. I've visited some spaces, and the rhetoric that's being spewed is very dangerous. I think that some of these men are unstable. And I mean unstable in the sense of they either need to go and get diagnosed, or they are already diagnosed and they just are not, they just don't believe in taking their medication or whatever. A lot of them are struggling with anxiety, just a lot of different mental disorders. And I don't make a mockery at that at all, because mental health is a serious thing. Okay, I especially for black people in this society. But on here, it is almost like this they're using it almost as a form of therapy, a form of release, right?
Hmm.
And it's so the reason why I know that there's a lot of mental instability happening,
Hmm.
or I'm witnessing a lot of mental instability, is because they're saying things that people would think twice about saying.
Hmm.
Like they're literally spewing it out of their mouths, right? And
Hmm.
and then I've seen some platforms where they allow this to happen. And
Promote, promote,
I commented,
promote.
and I
Don't
commented.
allow. They promote it.
There
They
you go. So
encourage
I
it.
was just gonna tell you, I
They
commented on
encourage it and promote it. Yeah.
I commented on somebody's video. She posted a short clip, and I commented on it, and I was saying my prediction is that we are going to see some of these people on the news real soon. And our only response is going to be, oh, I didn't even know it was that serious. Because we are literally using people's brokenness, right? People destitute of spirit, right? People like hurt
Yep.
and wounds, and we're exploiting it, and we're
Yep.
commodifying it, and we're making it entertainment, and we think it's funny, and we think, okay, this person going off is going to bring traction and viewers, and indeed it does, because people
Hmm.
literally like drama. It's a
Yes.
form of currency. But what is happening is, as I watch, I'm just like, this person is unstable. We cannot promote this. We cannot uphold this. We cannot put this before the people. But the thing is, no one wants to use discernment, or they choose not to, because a subscriber or a like or extra dollar in their pocket is more important. So
Yeah.
what do you see if we don't begin to fix this? What do you see in the future between men and women, between black men and black women, as far as shaming goes? What if shaming doesn't work, Rico? What does that look like?
Shaming won't work.
Hmm.
Shaming has never worked. I mean, you go back to shaming's never worked. I don't know
Hmm.
what people who were going back to this flights of fancy. Oh, we need to bring shame back. I'm like,
Hmm.
shame didn't work when it was here.
Right.
What did we used to do the scarlet letter? Like that didn't work. That worked for the shamer, the
Hmm.
people who were doing the shaming. You felt bad, but you never looked at the other side of it. When we used to put people in the stockade, again, you modify behavior
Hmm.
for a short period of time, but
Hmm.
they never got to the root of what caused that behavior in the first place. And
Yes.
oftentimes the very same people that were shamed repeated the behavior anyway.
Right.
It didn't, all it did was it bred resentment,
Hmm.
fear,
Hmm.
loathing, shaming has never worked. And I'm not saying that, that at some time, like you said, you tell people you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Yes.
You tell them that. Um, I, I just see everything you just described for me. I just see it getting worse. I see the same thing in so many spaces. Um, I'm a huge proponent that I don't believe everybody should have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear the things where people, and I just struggle with the with guys saying men have never heard a voice. I'm like, I've been listening to men all my life. It seems like they never shut the fuck up. I just don't know where and how and at what generation y'all lost your voice. I just don't get that.
No,
I
well,
hear some of the stuff, and I'm trying to say, no, seriously. It's just like I'm like, we speak differently in different ways. So because we speak differently in different ways, doesn't mean we lost our voice. I don't think we've never lost our voice. This whole concept of they had more TV shows. We didn't want to be on TV. We didn't need to be on TV. That didn't take our voice.
Rico,
the fact that women were more
stop
pronounced and more flamboyant and more out there. So what? Most of us didn't listen to them anyway. So it really didn't. I don't care that Oprah had a show. Most men didn't watch the shit anyway.
Mm-hmm.
She was speaking to women. We didn't care. So now we're going to say in 2023, well, Oprah had a show. So what? We didn't care then. We don't care today. You can't say, well, they had a show. And nothing in a patriarchy, which we've been in, as you said, for the last however many thousands of years.
Yes.
Nothing has stopped men from having a fucking show if we wanted to. You know why we don't make men talk shows? Because men ain't going to listen to them.
That's true.
So even if we want, well, make a man's talk show. Women gonna sign in. That's Steve Harvey. Most of his audience is women. Men don't want to listen to this shit.
But wait, hold up, Rico. I'm gonna have to push back on you a little bit there. So I think that when men say they never had they didn't have a voice, I think what they're saying is they have never been able to voice their grievances publicly as far as women. And we have always been given the space and the grace to publicly share our grievances. However, I tie that back to the system of over thousands of years that we call patriarchy. I tie it back to that. Men have never been given a space to complain because of men, because of the way men are socialized. So I agree with that. That
but let me ask you a question.
Wait, Rico. Wait. I'm gonna let you come right after. So I agree with men that to a certain extent I agree with you that I don't know that I would use it that voiceless. I don't know that I would say that, but to publicly share your grievances as men is seen as complaining and then is interpreted as being weak. So men have never been given that privilege. And I think that's what this all the while women have been given the space to do so. So I think when men say that, that's what they're speaking to. Your turn.
Okay. And I will say this. Among men, we just call them fucking crybabies.
You see?
Let me finish. I'm telling you, because let me ask you this. Hanifa.
Yes.
As a gifted, intelligent woman, right? Who has, as you just expressed, women have always had an opportunity to express their displeasure and to complain and to voice and to do all the shit. You know what most men sat back and said? And what has that gotten you?
Okay.
Y'all just got shit off your chest. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And because at the end of the day, you were second-class citizens before you started complaining. And when it's done and over, guess what you still are? Still second-class citizens or still under the patriarchy. And I'm not saying second-class citizens, but the patriarchy.
No, I got what you're saying.
The patriarchy existed before. When you finished and done, y'all complained.
Mm-hmm.
We made some money off of it. And we still in the same damn patriarchy. So I get it. Women were able to emote. We always say women were more emotional, right? So I grew up in a space where they said women were emotional and men are not.
Mm-hmm.
But now in 2022, men are crying that they don't have the right to be emotional. Mm-hmm. I'm like, make up your fucking mind. So do you want to be masculine? No, they don't say, do you want to be masculine? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And women are emotional because if a woman was emotional, oh Lord, And if she shows too much, you're being masculine. You're being masculine.
Mm-hmm.
So in these spaces, they're all over the place. So you can't go, oh, I want to get my feelings out. I want to get my feelings. I want to get my feelings out. But then when women do, oh, she's being masculine, or you too emotional. It's like every day. It's like every day is something new with y'all.
Mm-hmm.
What is wrong? I mean, just pick a lane, pick a side, choose what you want to do. And if it was consistency,
Mm-hmm.
I would understand. I
Mm-hmm.
came from a space where men, and I'm not saying that it was healthy. I'm not saying it was, but men, we were broken. You know, we came from a place of harshness because that's how we were raised.
Mm-hmm.
That was the environment. That was the generation. That was the time. It's still fucking hard for black men.
Yes.
It's just as hard for my black sons as it was for me. And I'm trying to remind them of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remind them, just because it's 2022, they still don't want our black asses here.
Mm-hmm.
You still better watch how you carry yourself and you conduct yourself. Yeah, we got more cell phones. We got more. Even with all the cell phones, they still beating the hell out of us. They beating us like cell phones was never existed. Because every day you turn on, we get another video. I was like, they act like cell phones don't exist. There's cell phones and cameras everywhere. And they still beating us like cameras don't exist. Because they don't, that's what they think about us. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the narrative where I'm trying to tell my son is like, we ain't got to the place that y'all might want us to be. And if we ain't got there, what are you going to do? You want to, I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really my thing is like men have not, we haven't had a place to cry. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if we need that. Not black men anyway. Now maybe white men can have that, but for black men, I think we need to continue to arm ourselves, to arm our sons, because this world is not short for wanting our asses.
But Rico, I am going to have to say no, sir, because
Come on.
black men are dying. They are self-deleting out here.
I don't want that now. Yeah, that I don't want.
No, so I'm just saying, I'm speaking to what you said, which is you don't think that we should have that same privilege. And I say, and I'm saying, no, black men, and this is where I think black women come in.
I'm not saying I don't think we should have that same privilege. I just don't think we still have that same luxury right now to be able to be in that space. That's my fear. It's not that I want us to have that equality.
Yeah.
I just know that equality does not exist for black men or black women, and black men even worse. We just
okay. So Rico, here's the thing, and that's real. That's real. I want you to stay right there. Mm-hmm. Just stay right there for 1 second, because this is what I'm speaking to. So this is why I am like, okay, we have to find a balance, right? You have women who are abandoning their post, and when I say their post, I mean, what is it? The function. What function have women always performed? Okay, so when you talk about you don't think that black men should have that luxury, I say black men will never have that luxury in this society until the society changes. However, black men need to be able to have that luxury in the spaces with their women that they're coupled with and in their homes. So in other words, the black man that I'm with need to be able to, if any place else, he needs to be able to cry in his own home if he needs to, because crying is how we recharge oftentimes. So my issue that I'm having with black men and black women is we are not seeing that the society that we live in is the issue. We're turning our guns on each other. We're turning our weapons on each other. With the woman, it's our words, you know what I'm saying? So we're turning our weapons on each other versus the society that has socialized boys to be these types of men and women to be these types of women. Because the reality is that a lot of women, you ask, how do we benefit? Right? Well, the complaining, the grievances, the public grievances have given women, but those rights were given to us by men. However, it still got us some of these privileges and so forth that we have today. However, I'm going to say this. Women, little girls, have always had some privileges that boys didn't have, and boys have always had some privileges that little girls didn't have. I don't know why we think that somehow because we're adults, that's going to change. So I disagree with the idea of, you're right. I know what you're saying when you're like, we don't have that luxury. We're supposed to be, our men need to be this way because of the society we live in. I agree with you to that. And then there's to a certain point, and this is where we part ways. Men, this is where women come in. What types of spaces, knowing how our men are socialized, right? Not just as men, but as Black men growing up in a society that have no love for them. If we are aware of that as Black women, what can we do to make sure that our men stay healthy? And I'm not just talking about feeding them. I'm talking about feeding their spirits as well. So maybe a Black man has no space to cry publicly in this society, but can he show any sign of vulnerability in his space, in his space with you as a woman, in his home? Are we doing that? And I think that's where I feel, this is just my opinion, Black women could do a better job at that versus joining the society in stoning, right? And demeaning and criticizing Black men. Because here's the thing, if his society hates Black men, they hate you too, Black woman. If society hates Black women, they hate you too, Black men. If they only see us as mules, as women, as Black women, then they only see you as mules and a utility as Black men. And the same, and vice versa. So we have to get away from treating ourselves, because we already live in that type of society, right? So what type of subcultures are we creating for ourselves as Black people? That's what I look at. You're right. The society is the big monster, right? Is the Goliath, right? Okay. Until we could beat Goliath, what are we doing on the ground level? What does that look like? Are we building safe and healthy spaces for each other? Or because we are afraid of Goliath and we are afraid to fight Goliath, we decide that it's easier to fight each other? That's where I have an issue. Go ahead, Rico. I see you on mute.
You killed it. I was like, I ain't got nothing. That was what you just did. You killed it. Now that I agree with 1,000%, because you're right. Within your home, that man should be able to cry. He should be able to be vulnerable. He should get the same support. He should get everything. But outside that home, I know in 2022 that don't exist. That don't exist outside that home, even within our community, from Black man to Black man. We out here killing each other.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So I mean, so that's all I'm saying. So, but within that home, you killed it. You killed it. Yes, but see, that's why I think, and I'm a little bit disappointed, because, it's weird to me when I hear this constant critique and criticism from Black men, not from white men, not from Asian men, not from Latino men. I've only heard this criticism, and I can't disagree with the statistics. Black women, only 1 out of 4 Black women never gonna get married. And they just shit on them when they say it, right? And it's like, but why aren't we marrying them? I mean, you say it so cavalierly, and as if the overwhelming number of Black men are getting married. I'm like, Black people are not getting married.
Black people.
So maybe only 25% of Black women would get married. I think it's maybe about 30% of Black men. So I'm like, y'all say Black women are unmarried, are not marriage worthy. Y'all must not be either, because ain't nobody marrying y'all ass either. So your godmother told you about Marisol and Malin. They don't want your asses either, because they're not marrying you guys in abundance. But what you're doing is you're shaming again the very community that's more likely to want to be a wife to your ass. You're hypercritical of the only space that's willing to just blindly, on a race loyal basis, to be willing to marry you based on your race. You're hypercritical to them while favoring communities that don't even want your ass in the first place. There's no abundance of Asians, Latino, or white women. We know that there's some in every community, but I'm like, they're a small percentage. They're a very small percentage. Just like knock it off, the numbers are the numbers. But overwhelmingly, black women would prefer to marry black men exclusively, and you guys are hypercritical. You're shaming them. You're calling them everything but a wife. I've literally heard them call them everything but a wife, you know, and it's just sort of crazy with the logic.
Okay, so we are going to welcome Ray. I guess Ray is calling himself Angry Man these days. But hi, Ray. I saw you in the comment section. So it seems that you disagree with some things that that Rico's been saying.
I disagree with everything I said.
Not everything, Rico. Don't do that. But I'm gonna let you go ahead. I'm not sure why. Speak. Let me hear you, Ray. Speak.
Yeah. Yo.
Yeah, you're fine. You're not echoing to us. You're not echoing to us.
Man, your whole you just said it's starting to all over. I just heard myself say I heard echo.
Yeah, you sound fine to us. So I don't know if it's your headphones.
Maybe I need to get off and then get back on.
Okay, you want to try again? Go ahead.
I'm hearing too much background to hear. I can't.
Okay, try again. Why did you go out and come back in?
It's probably the headphones, if I had to take a guess.
It's probably the headphones.
It'll create an echo. I know it does when I try them, so I don't.
All right, Mike, 1, 2.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't hear the echo that time. And no, I was hearing again when I heard his name, and wow, I just couldn't believe I've never heard a man talk like this before. This is incredible.
So what do you disagree
and I wrote every single thing that he said was disagreeable in every single way. First of all, when you were talking about the war on welfare that happened in the 60s,
the Moynihan report,
that pretty much dismantled the black community. Because prior to the 60s, the early 60s and prior to that, African American men and women were married. And even through the worst times, right after slavery, we talking about in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when they had the burnings that was not too far removed from slavery at that time. But black men and black women remained to be married together for many decades after that, and had lots of children. I'm pretty sure we all have great grandparents. How many children did those people have? How long did they stay married? They probably never got divorced ever. Am I missing something there? Because my great grandparents, they were together for 70 years and they had 10, 12 children. And this was pretty much the norm from the 60s, right before the war on welfare, and even a little bit during the war on welfare. But that's when the plummet started beginning, where marriages started plummeting. Men had started opting out of it more and more. It just got worse and worse if you look at the statistics. This is just a fact. It's not gotten better ever since that time. And prior to that, no matter how bad of a situation we were in as African American men, because we were in bad situations, we were in worse situations in the 20s, in the 30s, and the 40s. But we still stayed married. So to make the argument that the men were not having jobs, that's why they left, that's a ridiculous argument. Any dignitary will tell you that if you offer women the option of taking money over having to do responsibilities, they're going to take the money as soon as possible. You're giving a bunch of women, and not only that, but you're not only saying, I'm going to give you money for you to leave this man, put him out. Now we're going to send government agents to your house to make sure that there's no evidence of the man. They're going out of their way to make sure that these women put us out, because they know that you can't do that to any group of women and they not take their money. On a mass level, if you offer women that, it's not to be expected that they wouldn't take something like that. This was purpose. They did that for a reason. So to say that because the men didn't have a job That was a ridiculous reason. We were still married. We were still married at a high level. I'm thinking like 85% of 90% of African Americans were married to, not only were they not divorcing African American women, they weren't going outside their race to marry the white women. They weren't going outside their race to marry anybody. So I just don't understand that argument. But that's one of 40 things that he said that I was appalled by.
Can we address that one?
Okay, wait, Rico, wait 1 second, because I want to make sure that everyone gets a turn. So, Ray, I just had two questions before Rico respond to what you said. Is there a reason why do you think our ancestors were staying married? Was it just the times, or just because they were so in love with each other? Why do you think that they were staying married? Because at one time, like, that's sort of like how women gain status. That's almost like it was like a survival thing for women, because no one wants all women wanted to be married. That is kind of how the society was. So did that play a part in it, or and also did segregation also play a part in that as well, in how we stayed together as families because of the times that we're in? Or were we just, our ancestors just so in love with each other versus us hating each other right now?
But love is a relatively new term.
Okay.
You have to understand, love is not something that's been going on forever. That's something that I won't say others brought to us, just like others brought monogamy, among other things. Those are the things that they brought to us. Love was not necessarily way up on the list. It's duty. We had duty. Everybody has jobs. In every sector of the animal kingdom, everybody has a job in there, and they do their job. This love thing is something that came from them, not us. So when you have a duty, we have a duty to go out there and do A, B, C. You all have a duty to do D, E, and F. I mean, because we were better at this and you all are better at that. Saying that we don't have, we are different, we're not equal, it doesn't mean that our jobs are not right. This just has nothing to do with it. Women are better at these things typically. And I could list several things. Women are just way better at us than us. There are things that we are better than you all. And when we all do our jobs right, we all stay in our place. And I'm going to say stay in our place because it's offensive to say that. We all have a place.
It's all right. Go ahead.
And women have a place. When we all stay in our place and we do it, it's a slow dance and it is a delicate dance. It fits together like a puzzle. So, some of these things are suggested. It just sounds like love and listen, I heard something else. It was just like appalling.
Ray, answer my question first. So what do you think? What so you're saying the reasons why our ancestors stayed together longer than we can even imagine today is out of duty, if I'm hearing you correctly?
Right. Marriage is about duty.
Okay. So it was about okay, so it was about duty and not the what do you call it? The climate of the society didn't play a part in that. You don't think so? It was solely about duty?
No, I'm sure the climate has a lot to do with how it was happening. Of course it was. I mean, just like our climate does not support that. And look at what's happening to marriage. You see how do you see a correlation between our society and how unhappy our women are now, and how many people are getting married? Nobody's having children, and just look around. I mean, we could pretend, okay, I ought to be another, but of course the society dictated that, and that's why the West is in the worst position when it comes to that. And I declare this, that if we continue this way, not having children, replacing the current population, if we continue to not have the nucleus family, the West is gonna fall. We're not gonna have any children because I don't have any children. I'm a very eligible bachelor, and I don't have any children. And it's a lot of people that don't have children. If you don't have children, you don't replace the current population. So what's going to happen then? I mean, it's because of these ideologies that we will not last long. This is how we'll collapse because of thinking like that. That's ridiculous.
Okay, so I'm going to give Rico a chance to reply to if there's anything. He doesn't have to. But Rico, if there was something that was said that you want to respond to, you can say it at this time. Sorry.
Okay, quite a bit. All right, so let me ask you this. Okay, so just for transparency, have you read the Moynihan report?
I've never even heard of the Hamburger Report.
Okay, so I mean, and I have, and I read it in depth, so I know what it says. And I'm also 58 years of age, so I'm trying to be transparent that like I'm not young and I'm not uninformed on that report and what it said. And I read it in detail because people in these spaces are always quoting it, and they're always widely misquoting the Moynihan report. They'll pull out the snippets of the parts that will sit there and support their narrative, and they'll dismiss all the rest of it in depth. The Moynihan report, when it was put out in like 1964, 1965, it was widely disputed then. It's still widely disputed today. But people like to use it to buttress and support their argument. Okay, so when you got into the narrative about, and I don't disagree with what how Black relationships were prior to the 1960s, but I will also say that prior to the 1960s, that programs like welfare was not widely available to people of color. So if in fact in the 1930s or the 1940s or the 1920s, if a Black woman with 3 or 4 children and their husband lost a job, there was no welfare to get. So there would be no purpose for the separation of the family. There would be no purpose for her to take government aid that wasn't being offered. So you can't say that absence that help, that they wouldn't have done it in the 1920s or the 1910s, as Hanifa said. Maybe if it was offered back then, they would have took it back then. Maybe your great-grandmama would have left your great-granddad, but it wasn't offered. So there was no incentive whatsoever for her to say, oh, I'm going to get rid of this man. And I'm going to tell you, the whole getting rid of thing is just untrue. What the Moynihan report specifically showed was, it's called the Moynihan scissor effect. It showed where Black men, and this was, you got to realize, in the 1960s, so there was like around the height of the Vietnam War. They were starting to ramp up the mass incarceration. So Black men were being pulled out of the household anyway. It wasn't. So the narrative of Black women kicking them out, we're dismissing how many were being drafted to go to Vietnam, how many, and then we're coming back drug addicted. And I'm not saying it were white guys too. I'm not saying that it was a Black thing. It was the times. We're not being honest about what the times was around the 1960s, where you had all these the Black Panthers and the New Liberation Movement and all these things. It was hard as hell for a Black man. So anything the government could do to minimize them, they did en masse. So now you had all of these women, which they were mothers with children, who now they're in a position, because the narrative that you're telling me is that you gave the whole thing. Your narrative was, if the government, which you said all these other, if they went to that woman with a $200 check, she gonna put that man out that's bringing home $800 a month. On what planet in your mind, sir, does that make any sense that a woman would deficit her household by an income of $600 just to get government money? She's at a $600 a month deficit by kicking out a gainfully employed man. Now, if said man is unemployed for an extended period of time and bringing nothing, taking that government money is not a deficit. It's a gain, because they've been sitting here for 3 months with no income. If you've been out of work for 3 months in the 60s and you're not bringing no money home to your wife, and the government does come knocking on the door and offered her some money, that's not she has a choice to make. It's an untenable choice. It's a choice that most people don't want to make. But if she has 3 of your children, she's got an unpleasant choice to make, especially if the people are saying, I need to rent by the end of the month, or y'all got to get your Black ass up out of here. And believe me, that was happening, sir. That was happening in abundance regularly during that time. I'm sorry that you got
several things here. Okay.
Wait. Angry man.
Yeah. Okay.
Angry man. I'm gonna need you to wait 1 second. Let Rio land. Rico, go ahead and land your plane, and then I'm gonna allow Angry Man to
Okay.
respond.
So the only thing I would say is this. I mean, you said things like it was. I mean, you admitted you didn't read it, so I accept that. I'm not. It's not a shot or anything, and and I get it, because the exact same thing that you said is what I know I've heard repeatedly said throughout this space, and I'm pretty sure Hanifa's probably heard most of those talking points too. And it's like, without any evidence to show, you have no evidence to show me that the government was walking around knocking on black women's doors and saying, here's a check, put that black man with a job out. That just defies that. I would have to suspend belief that you're making a good income, and I come and knock on your door and offer this black woman 20% of what you're making, that woman would say, this is a good deal. Then you're saying black women can't count. That they defy. And like I said, I believe in the exception where Hanifa talks about if the woman's dealing with domestic violence, if she's dealing with, threats to her life. Yeah, you might make such a poor choice. I don't think most people would make such a poor choice that you're going to push out an adult person that's in the household that's bringing 5 times the income that the government's offering. Where does that make sense, sir?
Okay, so Rico, I'm gonna go ahead and let Ray. Ray, I'm sorry, I can't call you Angry Man. I'm so sorry. I'm trying.
Remind you of the other YouTuber, right? I know. I thought it was. I was like, what?
Okay, Ray, is that okay? Can I say Ray?
Okay, that's cool.
I feel so good. I was like, what?
Right. So Ray, I'm gonna let you respond to Rico, and then I just have a question for both of you guys afterwards. And Abraham, I see you. I'm gonna drop the link just now. But go ahead, Ray.
Well, this is the thing, though. What happens? First of all, you and I, men, think mathematical. All those numbers that you ran, I don't know where you got the 5 times as much. I don't know how you know the exact number. I don't have a clue how you know the exact number. You just threw out a number. Okay, so men think mathematical like that. But you know what happens when you say the men have to go, the women can stay and they get paid? That is saying, now I don't have to cook for him. I don't have to deal with no shit from him. I don't have to take nothing because I have money. That's what you got to hear, like a woman hears. We hear different stuff. We respond different ways. What a woman says is, now I don't have to deal with any shit that you do. So the same shit that I've been dealing with from you for 500 or thousands of years, I don't ever have to deal with that, because they're going to incentivize me to put you out. They're going to incentivize me to put you out when you do something I don't like. Men and women have been doing things to each other that we hate, not just men. This ain't just the color purple. This ain't just the color purple where the men are just going around busy beating women up all day. Men and women have been doing stupid stuff to each other since the beginning of time. We never have agreed ever. So the same things that we have been doing since slavery, and we got out of slavery, 20s, 30s, and 40s, we live in perfect harmony. We've been doing the same exact things. You know what changed? Is they offered money to not deal with something. What do you think she's going to do? You got to stop thinking like a man. That's how men see things. Oh, more money is coming? I'm going to stay. Women don't necessarily think like that all the time. We think like that more so than not, because it's necessary for us to do it to survive. We think on the dollar amount. You're trying to suggest that they would be crazy to put out somebody who's making more money if they were making more money. And that's not necessarily the case, because they won't have any responsibility. The government did not say, you put him out, then you still have to cook for him and you still got to clean. And the government say, put him out. You can do whatever you want. And the more children you had, you don't see the correlation between the 60s and before, when marriage was plentiful. Dating other races was not a typical thing. It was very uncommon. And you don't see the correlation for as soon as that happened, the numbers start slowly plummeting. There is a correlation. It has to be. It has to be. You can't incentivize people to do something. They're going to take the incentive. That's just what it is. That's why they have all these high divorce rates. That's why they have a lot of women trying to get pregnant from millionaires, because it's incentivized to do so. You can't incentivize people. I'm not saying black women are stupid because they do it. I'm saying that you cannot offer any group of women that in particular. You can't offer that to any group of women, and the masses won't take it. If you say put him out of the house right now for I give you $100,000 to put him out of the house, people are gonna take it. I mean, you have no. It's just you're thinking too much like a man. I don't believe that women would analyze things from a financial perspective like that when it comes to it, because they get all the benefits, they get all the pros, none of the cons. Put them out, you don't have to do nothing now. You don't have to worry about men been cheating on women since the beginning of time. This has never stopped. As a matter of fact, this is a new wave to where it's bad to do it. This is new, and it's only specific to the West. You said you're a very travel man. You should know this. It's very specific to the West only. All this just it's new. Men have been gallivanting with other women all the time.
Yes.
This is not something that just started yesterday. You made mention of that, so I just don't understand.
I just got one question. Why
Go
do you guys in your mind get the supposition that the government, now I'm gonna be honest, now I'm gonna talk like the government. The government don't love black women enough to give them an equal amount to what that man was making. So when I came up with those figures, 800 to 200, because I'm like, when we're given, first of all, it's called TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families. So the money's only temporary. It's not even permanent. You know, it's temporary. I know you guys talk, and y'all talk like welfare lasts forever. Nope. Bill Clinton killed that shit in the 80s. He made it temporary. After so many years, you got to come off. There are work requirements in most states. See what I'm saying?
But that was new. That's new when Clinton came.
No, that's been
there was no time limit in the 60s when Clinton came to the 90s. That's way down the line. We were already rolling downhill by it. We were already messed up.
Okay. But I'm saying they did welfare reform because they did want to reel it in. But even when and it's never been unlimited, but again, that's just I know things will get thrown out and people just regurgitate it, and it's like COVID, the shit won't die. See, I'll look stuff up. So even with that, the average monthly payment to a real welfare recipient today, you got to have like 50 kids to get like $1,500 a month. But if you got one kid, you might making it off for maybe $400 or $500 a month. Today.
You're not thinking like
okay, wait. Hold up, guys.
Take that to minimum wage. It's not more. The government's not giving women minimum wage salary to sit home on their ass. They're giving them enough to sustain themselves, not to be on the street. So again, all I'm saying is the correlation between whatever that man was making, no matter how small it was still greater than what the government gave her free. Now she got it free. She didn't have to work for it.
Okay,
but you
Rico.
still have to kick out someone that was making more than the government assistance. And that's what you guys just completely throw out because everybody wants to tell this story. Oh, these women just sit around and they get. I'm like, do you think the government is giving these women $4,000 or $5,000 a month to sit around on their tail and not do nothing? No, most states. Here's one for a fact. The federal government doesn't give out welfare. It's given out by the states. And it varies state by state. Some states will run a woman through pure hell to get $1. Look it up. Look up the state you in and look at what the requirements are. It is not universal. It's state by state. The federal government gives a block grant to all the states, and they decide how they're going to parcel it out. So some states are generous. Some states are hella stingy.
Rico and Ray, just pause for 1 second. I want to make sure that I welcome Abe. Abe, welcome to the panel. Say something so we know you're alive, sir.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I have to do it from my cell phone. So
you're fine. I know your voice, so I know that's you. I am going to ask a question to you guys, and then I'm going to let Abe speak because I want to bring the conversation back to the shaming aspect. So I do want to ask.
You muted, Hanifa. Hanifa, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why I muted myself as if one of you guys was talking because I mute myself when you guys are talking. I apologize. So I'm hearing you, the both of you guys go back and forth. And all I'm thinking to myself is, I think everything that you guys say, all of it is true. I
Yeah.
think my issue, it becomes an issue for me when black men make statements to assume that all black women during that time, or most of them during that time, took the money solely, right? Because they wanted to be independent of their men. Like that was the reason that they all did it. And for me, I'm just like, that's just not realistic. That's just not. So when I'm hearing Rico's argument and I'm hearing Ray's argument, I'm just like, I think all of those factors are true, right? I think that it worked the same way it does today. When I'm going to use women, when women come into a benefit, right? And let's say they're like, oh, this all you gotta tell them, even if it's a lie. It spreads like wildfire, right? So they'll tell their girl who's gonna tell their girl, this all you gotta do, right? So I think there was some of that going on during that time as well, where it's just like, no, you don't have to put up with him. They will make sure that you all right. Like I think that those conversations happened as well. I also do think that there was situations where women were not in the healthiest environments or relationships, and so they opted for whatever the amount was, okay, and they opted to just go ahead and take that versus because taking his income means he stays there. There are women that were in unhealthy situations and men. We got to think of black people as a collective. Okay, so I don't necessarily think this is a blame thing to where it's like, well, if you didn't do this, because there's so many other ways that the black family was attacked and destroyed. This is just one aspect that we're speaking of right now. There are so many others, right? So, but I do think, this is just me, I'm hearing you guys and I'm like, I feel like it's all true. And I want black people to start to embrace that multiple things can be true at the same time. Like it doesn't have to always be one or the other or black and white or this or that. Sometimes it's this and that. We always kick in with the or. It's always the or. Sometimes it's this and that. So that's just me. This is my opinion. And I also I'm going to let Abe speak real quick. And then after Abe, I want you guys to bring it back because I don't been on 2 hours. I wanted to bring it back to the shame piece. And why I know Ray, take that name off. I want to hear why Ray think that we should utilize shaming because I know Rico already spoke why.
Yeah,
and then the last question I'm going to anyway after the shaming piece. But Abe, go ahead and speak your mind, sir, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, the thing is when I don't know, can you hear me right now?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Now, Rico, hey, what's going on, Rico?
How you doing, sir?
It's been a while.
Yes, sir.
It's been a while. Now he said something. I can't. I'm trying to respond. Go ahead. I'm trying to find his.
Just let me have it. Just
no. Well, Rico, you know, sometimes you and I disagree a little bit,
yes,
man.
But Lord Jesus.
But it's all respectful. I know you said something. You said something to the fact that brothers are out here.
The judgment of black women.
Right.
I saw that. Go ahead.
And you believe that in your mind, you believe that it's one-sided. You believe that black men are overly critical of black women, but you don't see black women being overly critical of black men. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, but I will say this. You got it exactly right. Let me finish. The only thing I was couching that in was in the criticism where I hear black men say about black women being marriage worthy. And I just was trying to couch that in the fact that predominantly that's our greatest source of potential wives because black women are very race loyal when it comes to marriage. The numbers show that. And that like most other communities, only a small percentage do we have a choice to marry interracially because only a small percentage of white, Latino, and Asian women are willing to marry outside of their race. And while 25, so 75% of black women will never marry, it's probably going to be about 70% of black men. And that's why I didn't understand the criticism. I don't hear black women say the same thing. That's it.
I'm sorry. Well, Rico, where did you get that number about 70% of black men
that don't marry?
Right.
I got it from Kevin Samuels' Black Demographic, whatever .com shit, the same place he did
the 75% of black women. I don't know if it's accurate, but that's
No,
what
well, the 75% of black women is actually accurate. I think that Kevin Samuels got the 60% or now I don't know where he got that number from because I've been trying to find that number for 60% of black men are single without kids. I'm a person that I really like to dive deep into the stats. I haven't found that statistic yet, which is why I don't like to quote it. But that being said, if you're looking at like the surveys from the Census Bureau, like black women are the least likely to get married and have the highest divorce rate out of all groups, including black men, right? So that is true.
I agree.
And that's something that you can get from like the U.S. Census Bureau from their surveys. Now that being said, this thing where we like to blame men and make it seem as though this thing is one-sided. Black men have been getting beat up for a very long time. Black men have been getting beat up for a very long time in the media. And part of the reason why is because women are the largest consumer. Women drive the consumer market. All these shows that you see on television, they're
Abe, we lost you. Abe, did you go on mute or you fell off? Okay. Abe, if you can hear us, we can't hear you, just so you know. I don't know if you have to go out and come back in or I did have a question when he returns. Was that number was for Black American women that he quoted?
Somewhere it said something like the stat says something about well, at least Kevin Samuels says 75% of black women will never marry. Never.
Okay.
And I don't know. But I'm like I don't know the percentage of black men specifically that will never marry. But I'm like, well, if they're not marrying black women, they ain't marrying nobody else. So they must also not be getting married. Probably at a lower percentage, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But not wildly lower because we're not marrying other ethnicities, right? You know what I'm saying? And so if you don't marry a black woman, it's a likelihood that I'm not saying that you can't marry interracially, but there's not enough women of the other races that are willing to marry black men for us to say, oh, well, 90% of black men are getting married. I'm like, no, it can't be.
Okay, so do we consider when we talk about stats, because I know that's a big thing in this space, and I want to get to the shaming after this. I still feel like stats is almost like an extraction as well, in a sense, because I feel like there's a lot of players involved when it comes to like why things happen the way they do that stats never reflect. Like numbers can never show that. And so I like to hear like the conversations go a little deeper, like beyond the numbers, because I always ask, well, why is that the case? And of course, people have different opinions, but I'm always asking, like, okay, so why do you guys think the divorce rate is so high? Or why would he say 70 something percent of black women are not going to be married? Like, I like to ask those questions. So when people say, well, if they say the women outnumber the men or the men outnumber the women, then I still get into how and why is that so? So when you bring up stats, for me, I just don't think that it shows the full picture. It's fine to bring it up and to quote it. Abe, if you're still there, just know that. Are you still there, Abe?
He's trying to talk, but we can't hear him.
Oh, okay, because he's on mute right now. His mic is muted. So
Rico is muted too.
Okay.
Yeah, I muted myself.
Yeah, Abe is muted. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, let's continue because I'm going to be wrapping up soon, but I want to get into the shame piece. Okay. Rico, you tell me why shame.
Angry man explain why shaming is good.
That's what I was going to say. I'm going to start with Ray because Ray, I heard why Rico and myself, I think we agree on certain things as to why shame is problematic to the individual person. So you tell me why you think that we need to get back to using shame as a tool to modify black women's behavior.
Okay, because hey, Hanifa, do you remember you've done some shows with me already? Now, I've heard some of your views on things. It's right to the point. It's hardcore. You don't hold no punches. You say it just like it is. Can we agree on that?
Sure.
Now, sometimes I've said some of those things on some things that we've been on, correct?
Yes.
But when you said it,
Mhm.
there was no rebuttal. Certainly
Correct.
wasn't no rebuttal from brothers. Brothers don't rebut like that. We
Okay.
accept what the truth is, right?
Okay.
You said it. How much rebuttal did you get when you said it? All you saw, because I looked at it over and over again. All I saw was, mm-hmm,
Correct.
mm-hmm. You see, what I'm trying to say is, when men hold men accountable, we
Mhm.
do better. When women hold women accountable, and sometimes you need to shame to do that because we do it on a regular basis as men. You can't be a bum in a circle of men and somebody not call you a bum. It don't work. I work in a really rough line of work. My line of work is roughneck city. And if somebody in there is kind of moving a little trashy, somebody's kind of off the game, we hammer on them so hard. But nobody takes this hard. They just go harder. That's just how men are when it comes to that type of stuff. But I watch you do that. And your videos of everything you say, even when you've been on other podcasts, I've seen, when you come in, you hammer on it. When you say it, even if I said it the way you said it, you know good and well I couldn't get away with saying something like that. Because I've literally made compliments before and it's been taken bad. But you, on the other hand, I watched you damn near say you were gonna stab somebody. I damn near watched you say, I'll stab you. But you know what? You know what happened? They said, because we hold each other accountable.
Mhm.
Men hold men accountable. We don't feel no type of way. When women hold men accountable, men just don't mind taking accountability for the most part.
Okay.
Women, on the other hand, we need women
Okay.
to shame each other because that's how they used to do it back in the day. That's how they always do it. Women shame each other. And when women talk, women listen. With men,
Okay.
women don't care.
That's a good point because and I'm glad you brought that up because I still don't believe that shame is necessary, but I do think, and I think this happened in the last show we were on together, Ray. One of the things I told you guys I took away is that how different we hear what we hear as men and women. And so what you're speaking to is a issue of wiring. Men and women are just not wired the same. We're just not. So a man could say something and all the brothers could be like, well, like Abe had said, well, I thought that's what he was saying. And all of the women on the panel were like, well, that's not what we heard. Right. And so I agree with you because I'm an advocate of that. Women need to check women, and I hate the word check, but I'm using it here. And men need to check men. And the reason why it's not necessarily because, we gender matching. It's because of wiring. Women understand how women are wired, so we know the words to use. Even we know the tone, right? Because I can speak to a woman strongly, but the words I use might be a little bit different than a man. I hear men talk to each other. I agree with you. Where men, like you guys go in on each other to where I get uncomfortable sometimes. But I understand that for the most part, men don't interpret what's being said to them the same way that we would interpret it. So I think respecting the wiring is important in that sense in what you're saying. You're right. Maybe we do need women to speak out about certain ways that our women as a collective may be conducting themselves. That's the shunning I think Rico was talking to earlier. And then also we need the men to do the same thing. Before you move on, let me make sure. Abe, are you there? Because we got you on the screen twice.
He put something in the chat saying he
Okay, I just saw it. He said he having difficulty on his phone. But go ahead, Ray, and then Rico.
This is why I called you a thug. Because when I heard you talking, you just got this saying the way you say it, the words you say, how you said it is why you could convey it. That's not true. I've heard you talk. You don't when you say bad, you say bad. You will hammer it hard. So all that, the way you say it, that just sounds good. No, you don't say it soft. You say
But it's coming from me, and I am still a woman.
Exactly.
So the foundation of what's being said is the fact that that person can identify with the person who is saying it. That's the foundation of it. Then we get into the words that we choose and also the tone. But before we even get to that, right? The fact that you're a man stepping to me telling me about how women should be, most women, specifically black women, get defensive because I am going to be honest. It's because a lot of us have no point of healthy reference to how the male, female, woman, man dynamic is supposed to work. So if you don't have any example of how a woman should respond and speak to a man, and if our boys don't have an example of how a healthy, functioning man and woman are to converse with each other, we end up with what we're seeing in these spaces. Because no one is taking the time to understand each other. Because before I can, if somebody's hungry and I want to get a message to them, before I can talk to them, I need to feed them. Right? Or else they're not hearing me. It's the same thing with men and women. So when women come into the spaces and they just like in these spaces or social media and they just go hard at men with the lack of empathy and understanding the plight of men, they are going to miss the target every single time. And it's the same thing with men. When you come in and you don't even want to consider the plight of the woman you're speaking to or just women in general, you're going to miss the target every time because you're going to lack empathy. If we are not talking to each other from an empathetical standpoint, we are going to do more damage to each other than necessary. And so what you said, Ray, is correct. I think the main thing is women, right? Talking to women and men talking to men. Women trying to tell men how to be masculine is a no-no for me because most of us wouldn't know real masculinity or healthy masculinity if it came up and decked us in the throat. Okay? Men talking to women about femininity, whereby a majority of our black men was raised by single mothers, your version of masculinity that you received was a toxic one because it came through the vessel of a woman. Right? So there's a lot of these things that are at play. And for me, I'm stepping into the game like, how do we fix this? So we have this problem. And my question to everyone is, what you about to do about it? What are you about to do about it? That's my question. So I want to move the conversation forward and say, Rico and I disagree with you on shaming because we believe that it damages the individual, right? So even though you're going to get the outcome you want, Ray, do you not care about the person's spirit? You don't care about the person's being? You don't? Go ahead.
Important. Outcome is most
That's
important.
it. Okay.
That's the most important thing. The outcome is sisters are not getting married. The outcome is black men are going to other races. Those are the outcomes that are destroying our community. So the outcome on a large scale is destroying us as a whole. We're not going to, at some point, we're not going to even be talking to. We left black women at a higher percentage than any other race. Black men are leaving black women very highly. These are the outcomes. I don't care about feel. I care about protecting you. I care about providing for you. I care about you being in a household and raising a nuclear family so that we can be strong together. That is the cornerstone of any community, having a family combined. And the government purposely went out of their way and took our women away from us for that sole purpose. They knew what they were doing when they did that. They did it on purpose. If you take the man out of any community, everybody knows what's going to happen. It's going to destroy them. So that's why they hate. They gave black women money for the sole purpose of separating us just so this happens. They knew it was going to happen. Anybody could tell you. If you take white men away from the white women, guess what they're going to be? It's going to be terrible because they need each other.
You muted, Hanifa. Hanifa, you're muted.
Ray, I just have one question. I guess it's sort of like a pushback. Rico, and I'm going to let you come in. So Ray, what I'm hearing you saying is the outcome is most important, right?
Yes.
That sounds like the way the corporations function. Okay. So you're saying outcome is what's most important. So are you saying that, listen, get married. I don't care if the shaman have broken. So you broken her spirit, make her feel shitty about herself. So you're saying, as long as we married, I don't care how shitty my wife feels about herself because of the damage shaman has done. Is that what we're saying?
What I'm saying is that how a woman feels change from second to second. It's literally. Wait a minute. This is not. I'm not making it up. How
Okay.
a woman feels from second to second.
Mm-hmm.
It can go any direction the wind blows, and any man who's dealt with women knows that. If we're gonna base everything based off of what we make a woman feel,
Mm-hmm.
we are in worse. See, how a woman feel is what got us to this point.
Okay.
And how a woman feel. You can't do things by feelings because it destroys stuff. You can't do things by feelings. It destroys things. From the perspective of a woman, I understand you feeling as if the feelings are important because you're a woman. It's
I'm a woman.
understandable.
Mm-hmm.
We as men, we fix. Women, they nurture. So
But
we
you're not fixing and you're not building if you're shaming. Because what you're creating is an individual that is going to give you the outcome, right? Because again, we have this innate need to connect. Nobody wants to be outcast. Nobody wants that, right? But so you have an individual now that is complying, right? Who have solely modified their behavior, and they are going along with what is expected of them, but they're holding resentment, right? You know the saying, pressure bust pipe? At some point, they are going to explode or implode, whichever one. And implode to me looks like offing themselves, which is what's happening with a lot of black men right now. And exploding looks like at some point she is going to find a way to desert the family or get away from you. So my thing is there another alternative than shaming, something that's a little, that's a little bit less violent to the spirit of the person, I guess is what I'm asking.
we are so far gone.
We don't have time for it.
We are so far gone. We have gotten so far down this hill. The ball is rolling completely out of control. Now, my
Okay.
question is, in these other countries, how come they're doing worse to their women, and none of them want to leave? Those women are completely happy in those countries that we think of. Those women are absolutely happy. You can get them to come. You know what they got? You know what they got in those countries? They have a husband. That's what all women can't keep. They have a husband. Their families all live together. They have family. They have unity. They have their husband. And when they walk around the community, everybody respects them when they walk around those.
Rick, can I ask you a question? What country are you referring
I
to?
was gonna say, you think they're
I just want you
happy?
to tell me, what country are you referring to
Okay.
that has this high standard of? Please tell me which one.
All of them.
No, give me. Can you name one or two of them?
Kuwait.
I don't know anything. Wait a minute, the Middle East?
Yes, that's the Middle East. That's what I said. What you gonna say?
You're nuts.
Well, why did you say that? No, give me something. Don't just say.
Yeah, well, wait. Let me stop. We need to speak to the points that we disagree to. We are not doing.
Okay, right. I'm not. But I'm
Okay, Rico. I know you don't mean no harm, but I would prefer
Right,
that
yeah.
we not do that. But go ahead, Rico.
Right. No. The reality is that it's disingenuous at best to say that, considering that the second-class citizenry that women in the Middle East have to endure. Ergo, most of them can't leave the house without their husband or their father or their brother. They have no agency over themselves. Now, are you a Kuwaiti woman to know that?
No, I'm not a Kuwaiti woman at all.
Okay, so what are you basing your premise that they're just wildly happy with because now I just saw an article or a news report where they were just talking about when we just got out of Afghanistan and the women who claimed they loved all the freedom when they were able to go to school, they were able to go to work when we were there. Now a year later, now the Taliban then came in and then they told them you all better quit your jobs, you all better stop going to school, and they're all crying the blues because the taste of freedom they had has just been stripped away from them. Now, in 5 years, people are going to say, oh, they're right back there with their niqabs and hijab and completely covered, and they're totally happy. And we don't know just how miserable those women may be. So I think it's unfair to say that women in all these countries are just giddy and just wetting the bed with joy over their conditions. I think that's wildly unfair. Now, you spoke to the point of the narrative about some of the things you described, as Hanifa said, it's like, yeah, shaming to me it can be considered a form, as Hanifa described, almost as a form of violence, verbal. I don't think it's physical violence or emotional violence, but I'm like, and that's to get compliance. And I'm like, who else we do violence on to get compliance to? Prisoners. It doesn't mean they're happy doing it. It just means they will do it. So I would sit there and say that, and the whole narrative of women shame women in the past and it always worked. No, women have always done it. And I would say that there's no evidence that it worked. It just was done. Who else? I look at shaming on a large scale. We used to shame entire communities. So we took Native Americans off the reservations, put them in schools, and we shamed them for speaking their language. We shamed them for wearing their hair the way they were. We shamed them for their customs. And we damaged the original people of this land through shame and insult. They did it to Black people. So if you look at it, shame doesn't work. It forces you to bend the knee in the moment, but you resent it, you reject it, the person inside. So if that's what you want of your women, God bless you. I don't want that of my wife or my woman. I want a woman with her entire autonomy and agency to be herself 100%, equal as a human being to me. My wife's not a man, I'm not a woman, but she is a fully autonomous person, and I will never shame her. Now, if I don't like something that she's doing, we can talk about correction, but correction doesn't require shame. Shame is purely damaging. That's all I'm saying.
So I'm going to speak to one thing you said, Rico, which is, for example, our ancestors in this country and the shame tactics that have been used against them for God knows how long, right? And the results that we have today because of that, where some of our people are walking around with inferiority complexes and just feeling like, they can't acquire certain things simply because of the bodies that they exist in, right? Or they look ugly because of the way their hair look, the way their skin. I'm too dark, I'm too light, whatever that is, right? I think that's the damage I'm talking about. And by the way, that worked for who needed it to work. There's someone that's benefiting from that. So that is the person whose intent and agenda is to maintain what? Control and domination. That's what that's about. So for me, shaming works. And that's what I'm saying to Ray. You're going to get the outcome. But at the end of the day is at what cost? Now, if you want to dominate, then by all means, you're going to see shame. Because you don't really care about the person, right? You don't care about how that person, the detriment that the shaming does to that person in the long run. You don't care about that. You just care about control and bringing that person's behavior to where you want it to be. So that's someone who is dominating. So when we talk about white people in this country and the damage, shame was one of the tools actually of warfare, if you ask me, that was used against our people. And when we look at our people and how disempowered they are today, a part of that is the shaming. And it worked for the people who wish to remain in power. So if this is a power dynamic versus a relationship dynamic to where you're literally trying to relate to each other, then by all means, shame is going to be the route you're going to go. But if you're literally trying to build relationship, then I would say you probably need a little bit more empathy than shaming, if that's your goal, if you wish to bridge the gap between Black men and Black women. But if you don't, and you just solely want Black women to go back into this, whatever that place was, then by all means, right, but by all means, then shame is the way to go. And for me, my pushback is, I don't want that for us. I want the black man to understand the black woman and to be willing to love and work. Well, Ray, I know love in this sense, but to be willing to walk with the black woman. I want the black woman to see the black man as a human being, as somebody that she can partner with and work with. And because that's the angle that I come from, right? I just don't see shame having a part in that dynamic. I just don't see it. It was wrong for black women, and Ashan got to ask a good question to you, Ray. It was wrong for black women to sit up on these talk shows and all of these other things and shame black men. So Ashan asked, if shame works and it gives you the outcome that you want, all these years that black women have been shaming black men, have it worked? That was a question to you, Ray.
Good question.
Well, I don't know if you all read my comments when I said that shame can be used for good or bad. You can't focus on just the part that proved your point.
But
If you
what's so
look at
good?
it, you can use anything as positive or negative. And I made very good examples, and the proof is in the pudding on the positive side of shame. So you can't just say, "Oh, it's an embarrassing word," the word shame. So it does sound bad. It does sound bad. But if you listen to my examples that I made, you will see that maybe it does make sense, because you can, in fact, check a bunch of women. Hanifa, I have seen it happen. Thug, I have seen it happen many times.
But Ray, outside of the outcome, outside of you getting your, because this is, I think we'll put this under the good category, getting the outcome that you desire, right? That would fall under good. What other good comes from it outside of just getting the outcome that you want? What's the other good? Because I can list a ton of bads.
The outcome to me is the most important thing. What happens? I mean, because essentially we're in a bad position because of A, B, and C. The outcome of being, of being empathetic is we're in a bad position because of that. What is the outcome right now? How we got to this point? Look at where we at right now. We're in a terrible position. But I can guarantee you, all them years back when women had their husbands, everybody was doing bad stuff to each other, not just the man doing it. But guess what? They had their family. Women love family. Is that a bad word to say? Women generally love family. They love marriage. They love marriage more than men like marriage. Men don't need marriage like women need marriage. And all these things I'm suggesting only helps women. You're putting women in a bad position more so.
Are you saying that the only way to get the desired results that you want, whether it's through women or men, is through shame? You don't think there's no other tool in the toolbox that can get that result? So even when you talked about the gentleman that was slacking on the job, right? And y'all felt like the only way to motivate him to step up was by berating him and beating him up and whatever, verbally, whatever the case may be, right? Mm-hmm. That's how y'all got him to step his game up, right?
Yeah.
You don't think you could have said, "Hey, I'm gonna pay him more money"? You don't think? You know what I'm saying? No. What I'm sitting there saying is, well, I'm just using that as an example because we always go to the same tool. Like I said, I knew as a parent, I was spanked. My tool was to spank. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't that I didn't have other tools in my toolbox. Mm-hmm. We always go to the same tool. And that's all I'm saying is if you were shamed, you always go to that same tool in the toolbox because you think that's the only thing that works. When there are other things you can use.
Listen, of course, but when men are embarrassed about something that they did, and they're made to feel bad about what they did, their actions, the next day they get their shit together.
But embarrassment. You're saying embarrassment is the only motivation for men?
No, it's lots of motivation. Okay. But this discussion wasn't about lots of motivation. This discussion was about shaming, wasn't it? That's the only thing we were talking about. We were talking about shaming. It's a lots of other ways. I'm just trying to get y'all to understand that it's another perspective to shaming.
And yes, no. And I, Ray, I understand. And by the way, what you say, first of all, wait, hold 1 minute. Abe, can you say something?
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just respond to Ray. So Ray, what I'm hearing you saying, and I think I agree with you too, and then we hit a point and we part ways. So where I'm hearing you saying is that, listen, we are in a dire position right now as a collective. Okay. you're saying we need like immediate results.
Yes.
Like right now, we're in a desperate situation. And I
Yeah.
got you because we are in war, right? And the truth be told, and Rico, you're a vet, there's just some ways that you conduct yourself during a time of peace that you just can't afford to during a time of war. Okay, so I am very clear on what you are saying, Ray. I want you to know that, right? I guess what Rico and I are saying is that what is the long-term effects? That's what we're speaking to. So what I'm saying is, I hear you. You're saying, like, listen, that's all that matters is the outcome, because we need to fix some shit right now. Like we can't wait. Like yesterday, we need to fix some stuff yesterday. We can't wait. We don't have that time right now because stuff needs to happen now. And if we're looking for immediate results, you're saying this is the shortcut to that, because that's what shame is. It's a damn shortcut. This is the shortcut to that, and we're like, we need to find the shortest way there. And you're saying shame is that way. So I hear you. I hear you. I guess what Rico and I are saying is like, okay, I agree with what you're saying. I can't disagree with that because I know that shame is easy and it is a shortcut. What Rico and I are speaking to is the long-term effects of that, because truth be told, there's a lot of shaming tactics, right? A lot of shame that kind of have been used against our people over the years. And also we've used it against each other over the years. And look at where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. So when you were speaking in the chat and you talk about the long term, I'm like, we are in the long term now. This is the long term. This is yesterday's long term. Right. So this is where we're at now. And where are we? Look at the conversation we're having. So that's what we're speaking to. But I want to give Abe a chance to jump in, and then I'm going to start wrapping up because I want to hear what you guys' alternatives are. Well, Ray, I know you don't have one. You're just like, shame.
He gets angry. He's angry.
I want to hear what you guys' solutions are. But go ahead, Abe. Speak your mind.
No. The solution is to continue to have conversations like this, and we've mentioned that. We talked about that before, that we have to hear both sides out. And for a long time, there's only been one narrative that's been heard. And I think before I got cut off, we were talking about how women drive consumption and how a lot of the marketers and television programs, everybody caters to women. And the example that I was getting ready to say before I got cut off is just look at TD Jakes. When TD Jakes says something that women love, it's no problem. I mean, a week or two ago, he said something to the effect that women are being too masculine. They're in their masculine energy, something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. And he said that it's good that you're independent, but you don't have to go around saying that all the time, because if a man feels like you don't need him, then it's like, what's his purpose in being in that relationship? Now, I don't think what he said was offensive, but the following week, half it was gone. It was only 50% of the people in the in the congregation. So what that does then is it sets an example. It's like a warning shot to everybody. If you cross us, we will burn you. And that is the mentality that a lot of Black women have. You can't say anything about them. They can, if you say something that they disagree with, they can call you gay. They can talk about your mother, right? But if you say anything to that, they will go report you to Facebook. And next thing you know, you're in Facebook jail. They're trying to take you down. And all you have to do is look at the example between Kevin Samuels and Cynthia G. Cynthia G said that Black women should abort Black male babies. There was no outcry. Kevin Samuels agreed that with the woman because she said she was average, and he called her average at best. They're ready to burn down the village. He's a Satan. Now, which one is worse? Which one is worse, and which one got the most attention? And that's what we have to look at. You know, for too long, the conversation has been one. And I know, I know Rico, I know he disagrees with me.
Wait, Rico, let him land. Go ahead, Abe. Land your plane.
I know my brother Rico disagrees with me because he feels like the brothers are too hard. And what you're seeing right now is just brothers pushing back, right? We're not perfect, but Black men have been getting beat up for a long time. You get beat up by white people in society. A lot of times you get beat up by your mothers, telling you that you're worthless and you're going to be just like your father. And black women talking about black men ain't no good and black men are dogs. It's like, damn, you getting beat up from everywhere. And sometimes it's not really your fault. And I will say this, and I'll land. You have many sisters who believe that black men will just get up and leave the relationships. But when you look at the numbers suggest otherwise. 80% of divorces are initiated by women. Now, this is according to the CDC. Now, according to the American Sociological Association, that number was more like 69%. But either way, 70% to 80% are initiated by women. So why is it that so many women believe that men are the ones just up and leaving their families? So I don't know. I just, again, and this is my last 10 seconds, I just think that it's good to have conversations like what we're doing, but we have to hear each other. It can't be men always bad, men always wrong. It can't be that way, right? We have to listen to each other and learn to respect where we're coming from. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
I agree, but wait 1 minute, Rico. I agree to a lot of the things you said. When people bring up the divorce rate for as far as women divorcing men at a higher rate, I like to get into the factors that contribute to that. Now, I know most men say it's because it's incentivized, right? That is the answer that I often get from men, and I do think that is one of the reasons. That's one. It's not the main reason. I think that our relationships, you have two broken people trying to be adults in what they call marriages, and I think that contributes to it. I do believe that if there wasn't the support systems available that are to women today, that women would be the great grandmothers that Ray talked about earlier. They would sit their ass still, right? And they will raise them kids in that marriage. But was that the healthiest thing? So I think that there needs to be a conversation on how do we build solid, healthy relationships with each other. Therefore, we could decrease it's not about removing the incentives. It's about how do we decrease the divorce rates by becoming healthy individuals before we become coupled, okay? Whereby she's not leaning on or she's not functioning out of a place of trauma and he's not functioning out of a place of trauma. They're both not functioning out of a place of dysfunction. I think there are conversations that need to be had around that versus if she didn't have this incentive, she would not leave. If he wasn't such a bum, he would not leave, or whatever that is, or he wasn't abandon his family, because there's a lot around that. Family court don't give a shit about our families, period. Family court do not care about the nucleus family at all, or the traditional family. And when I talk about the traditional family, I include grandparents and so forth, that's how we used to live, right? The family court don't. We could start there. And I think once we acknowledge that, then we can actually start talking about how we can work together as a collective in fixing our relationships. And I think it starts with the individual. But Rico, I saw that you wanted to say something to Abe, so I'm going to allow you, then I'm going to allow Ray, and then I'm going to start closing up, guys.
Okay, just gonna be a minute. And thank you, Brother Clarence, for popping in. I guess you heard that stat that I just been. This is like COVID and monkeypox times 10. There is no evidence whatsoever that shows the percentage of people who file divorces by gender. Divorces like marriages are maintained by states, all 50 states individually. There's no national database of marriages or divorces. You get married in the state of Maryland, your records are only in the state of Maryland. You get divorced in the state of Maryland, your records are only in the state of Maryland. Virginia and DC don't know a damn thing about it. It's not a collective. So this made up stat, and the CDC does not track that. The states don't track it. The state of Maryland does not track who filed divorces by gender. They just don't. They can tell you how many people got married each year. They can tell you how many people got divorced, but they do not track it by gender. That's an untrackable stat because most states don't care. It's a pointless. It was purely made up. Kevin just pulled it out of his back. I tell you what, I will say out to this: go find it. Go find it. Don't say it. Just go find it.
And
I have a question. Wait. 1 minute. I have a question to that. Now, if you see Sarah James on the document, who do you think Sarah is? No, Rico, that's for you. If you could answer that, like who?
I'm going to think Sarah's a woman.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, is it possible that maybe that's what they're going by?
No, because of the
Okay,
fact
go
that
ahead. I'm just asking a question. Go ahead.
I will be more than happy to give. If you looked at my divorces that I filed, and you see, Rico, and you're going to think that's a man. That's fine. However, have you guys ever looked up marriage records and divorce records? You don't get to just do that. You have to go to the court, and you have to know the person who got married, or the person. You have to know their names. You have to know their dates. That's not public records. When you go for that, you specifically. It's just like getting a birth certificate. If you go look for a birth certificate, I have to say, I'm the father, this is the mother, this is the son. You have to know all that information. There's no collected information in the Department of Vital Records that store that information for the public. So no one's out there collating that data. The state behind the scene just knows. Now, here's the second part that you screwed up. Look at ethnic names. So when you look at a Korean name, you don't know if it's a man or a fucking woman. Forgive my language. You don't know when it's Kwang Shang and Twang or an Indian name. You don't know. We know traditional English names. Third part, same-sex marriage has been around almost 2 decades. Almost 2 decades. How do you account for that? How do you account for that with 2 husbands or 2 wives? How do you account for it? We don't, because it's a meaningless stat. But he said it, you guys grab it, and like COVID, it will not die.
Okay.
And that sociology, it's a law article. It was not research. It's speculative. I do believe the majority of divorces are filed by women. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But to say 80% as opposed to the majority could be 51%.
Okay.
80%
sounds still more than men. It's still more than men.
You're creating a narrative by repeating unfounded information is the issue, and how you guys can't see the holes in that. Where every time we asked Kevin Sanders, he was asked repeatedly 3 and 4 times, where did you get that information? I like to find it, and he always dodged. I will show you timestamps on the little piece. 3 times he was asked, and he never produced it because it was made up.
Okay, wait, pause. Before anyone responds, pause. 1 minute. So Rico, the reason why I asked about the names, because when you said that, I was like, wait a minute. I mean, maybe they're, recording that data, but you answered my question. So thank you for that. I will say though, when I hear it said in these spaces about the percentage of women, and I do agree with you, Rico. I agree with everybody else. I do think that we file at a higher rate. We just do. Now, if you could just do a survey of the people around you who are divorced, and you can know that women are filing at a higher rate. Now, you're saying, Rico, hold up. Rico, you're saying how high that rate is. We can't know for sure. No. I got you on that. I got you. And so my question is still always, let's say it's 50%, the number you gave.
Right.
I want to know the why. I just don't think the numbers even show the why. And that's the issue I tend to have with the numbers. But Rico, I'm going to give Abraham a chance to respond. One minute, Rico. 1 minute. Wait, hold up. Because I can't hear you. I can't hear you while I'm speaking. I'm going to give Abe a chance to respond to you, but it sounded like you wanted to say something else before I give it over to him, and then I'm going to let Ray speak afterwards. Did you want to say something before I give it to Ray, to Abraham? Go ahead.
Yes, because again, like you said, the whole premise is, and even when I had been disputing this for almost a year, I was like, and it doesn't even matter because the filing of a divorce is just an administrative task. The constructive end of the divorce, in most cases, while the majority of women file for divorce, in issues of abandonment, the majority of men leave. So the fact that women file after the fact is pointless. Sir, it's proven if the more men leave the home than women do. Now, the women will subsequently file for divorce, but then they'll say, well, the woman construct. I'm like, no, she just filed for the divorce. When the person left, the marriage is basically over. So I don't even care about that. The other point that I wanted to get to that Abraham said was, other than that, which nobody will ever be able to prove. What was the other thing you said, Abraham? I'm sorry, because I didn't even want to get stuck on that.
The thing is, you said a lot, and I'm trying to keep up with.
No, just other than the 80%, it was one other point that you made.
Okay, so I talked about the two different studies that were out there, and you said that the studies are they're absolutely false, and that they are a lie. And if that's the case, then just throw out every study.
Go ahead. No, I'm saying the studies about what?
The divorce rate.
We're talking about the divorce.
No, it was something else you spoke. It was something else you spoke about prior to the divorce.
Oh, when I was talking about T.D. Jakes and his congregation.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I know exactly what it was. You brought up Kevin Samuels, Average at Best, and you brought up Cynthia G with the aborting black babies, right?
No, black male
babies. Black male babies, right? Exactly. And this is what I'm saying. Okay, now here's the history. When Cynthia G, and I think she was terrible for saying that. I was totally against her. Yes, I do. I'm telling you, I do. I was riding for men. I'm a black man, sir.
I don't know.
Like, that's crazy. Okay, I am. But that's crazy to say that. So I think she just went off the reservation. She should have been canceled, whatever, but they don't listen to me. So I was like, she was wrong for that. But then y'all say that about Kevin Samuels, like Average at Best hurt him. I'm like, Kevin Samuels, before Average at Best had maybe 100,000 subs. After Average at Best, his ass went to 1 million.
You see, that's not the point.
But I'm just saying.
Rico,
you said. I just want to finish this. You said that he got more criticism than she did, and I'm like, no, he got more celebrity behind Average at Best, and she didn't go up in subscriber count. He did.
Okay, Rico, allow Abe to respond. I want to get to Ray, and then I want to give my thoughts, and then I want you guys to, I want to give my thoughts on this particular topic, because there are some things that you guys said that I want to speak to as well, and then we're going to get back to the shaming, and then we're going to close out. So Abe, you go ahead.
Right. So I'm listening to him, and I'm giving him actual surveys that were done. How they actually have a methodology. They have a methodology. It's a complete study with methodology and everything. And you can question the methodology. That's fine. But on the one hand, I'm giving you, two studies. One from the American Sociological Association, and the other one from the National Center of Health Statistics, which is like a sub-agency for the CDC. And you're dismissing them. And then you come and Rico is coming and giving this random, well, most men leave the house, no statistics, no nothing, just the way you feel, right? And so anyway, but what I want to say is, if you're going to dismiss studies, because really that's all we have to go by, right? Just like, say, for example, we know that the top 3 reasons why people get divorced in marriages, the number 1 reason is finance. The number 1 reason for conflict in a marriage is finance. How do we know that? Because of surveys, because of studies being done. That's how we know that. That's how we know that infidelity plays a huge part. That's how we know that the number 3 reason is family. Like different people don't like their in-laws because their in-laws are always in their business. That's how we know this type of stuff. So if you're going to say that, oh, well, every study that you don't agree with, you're going to be like, I don't believe it, then why accept any study at all? Why not just go by the way you feel on Tuesday or the way you feel on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to let Ray respond, and then I want to respond to everything I've heard. Go ahead, Ray.
But just based off of your, Rico, just based off of your personal life, you can't say that you witnessed more of aunties, homegirls, exes breaking up with the boyfriends or the husbands or leaving. You can't say you can't even say that. Is there a point at all where you can say that any of this stuff is true based off of your real life? Because all of this stuff that I'm saying is based off of what I've witnessed over the course of my life. I got a couple studies. I know a few things that happened over the course of time that put us into this hole that was constructed by the government. I know some of those things, but just based off of your life, you mean
Based off of my
that you
life,
can't present it?
I'm gonna answer. Based off of my life, I think that at a slightly higher percentage, more women have broken up with men for the totality of my life. I don't think it's a 80, 90 percentile. However, I'm answering you, sir. I said more women have broken up with men than men have broken up with women. However, to include myself, because see, I'm on my third marriage. I also know, I don't hide anything, sir. I also know that as being a man and being out here in the past and knowing how I ran the streets and how a lot of the men I was around ran the fucking streets, I know a lot of the reason why.
That's not that. That's
no,
not.
No, sir.
You change it to context. You change it.
Wait, Ray, you gotta allow him to finish.
All I'm saying is, yes, I agree. I would say 60 or 70%. When my two ex-wives got tired of my shit, they was tired of my shit. And I knew a lot of women that eventually got tired and they ended it for whatever reason. You could say whatever you want, but just like I was out there in them streets, I oftentimes would be out there with other people's husbands in them streets. Men, we know this. Now, we can all pretend like we don't, but we know this. We know that reality. Now, I ain't go back and tell on nobody, but shit, they eventually got found out like I did. It is what it is.
Okay, I wanna close out.
Just because they was out there with women, you think that's a good enough reason? Come on, man.
Hold up. I wanna close out this this part by saying this. So Rico, the only pushback I have is this, and this is not stats or data. This is real life.
Yes.
I have found that men will sit in a relationship that is failing much longer than women. I am sorry. Wait, Rico, hold up. Wait, Rico. I am sorry, but I have found that to be true. And I have asked, why do men do that? I have asked that question many times. Where, I mean, you guys are sleeping in the separate beds. Y'all not having sex. None of that. And a man will sit there and wait for that woman to go and file for divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out that marriage was over with 5 years ago. And the somebody, it's usually the woman that decides to get up and go and file. Honestly, I've seen this so many times, okay? But I also think a part of it is the way you guys are socialized. You guys are, and the way we're socialized. You guys are socialized in a way that you are expected to endure hardship more than we are. We have certain expectations as women because of the way that we're socialized. Okay, we are expected to be cared for and so forth. Men, not so much. So a man would carry the burden of the world on his shoulder and not say a word. They will suffer in silence. So knowing that fact, I can't in good conscience agree and say men are abandoning or leaving relationships with, like, I swear, Rico, I have asked, like, why do men do this? Why not just leave? I find that men actually sit and take it more than women do. And then the second thing I want to speak to is someone talked about the woman that they know around them. I think it's Sean. They've all been abandoned or whatever. Just like the stats, just simply saying they were abandoned or use the word abandoned does not tell the full story. Right? Here's another thing that I know. When a man is done with your shit, he's done with your shit. And now you, because of your mouth and I'm not saying this is everyone. I'm saying there are situations where it has become hell in the home. So the men leave and then the woman say, oh, you abandoned your family. No, sir. I left you. No, ma'am. I left your ass. And then it translates over into, and we saw this big blow up with B. Simone. If you remember that, Rico, when she went viral and she was talking about MLK. And she said, well, if you don't respect me, then you don't respect my child. Something along those lines. That is the mentality of a lot of women. If you can't be a good husband, you cannot be a good father.
Okay, but Patrice,
So just 1 minute, Rico. Let me land right here. So just simply saying abandonment, I feel like that word is often loaded, and there's a story that's often not being told specifically by the men, because women, we're gonna chat, we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna tell it from our perspective, and oftentimes from a victimhood mindset, right? We're gonna tell the story, but there is a missing component, and it's often the voice of the men. And so the woman says he abandoned his family, right? Versus he left me because we were incompatible, or because I was just unbearable. He could no longer deal with me. That's not what's being told. All the men get lumped into they're being abandoned. So for me, I often say, what's the story behind this word abandonment? What are we really talking about here? Because from my observation, and the way that men are socialized, specifically black men will sit and take it. And I have asked, why haven't you left? Because this situation is abusive. But Rico, I know you're going to respond to me, and then I go move on. So go ahead.
I only got one question. So if in fact we have to say that it is an unfair assessment to blame black men for abandonment,
okay,
then it has to be an equally unfair assessment to blame black women for initiating the divorce. Because clearly they go around and they lean into this 80%, right? As if that's, see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like if we can't say, because you gave all the reasons as to why black men may have left. You were unbearable. You were not this. You were not that. You were not this. Then that same logic must apply to the people who did the administrative act of saying, hey, look, I'm just going to hand them a file.
And you get no pushback on me from me for that, because I've been saying for the longest while, it's not enough to just say women initiate majority of the divorce without talking about what is going on. Why is that? Now, outside of the incentive, because I think that is a part of it, right? Because I think if it was the same back then, which we've seen, right? I do, yes, Abe, I'm coming. I do agree that there are many factors involved as to why that is. And I also think one of the factors that we don't consider is the way that we were socialized as boys and girls, as women and men. Women are way more entitled than men. Men cannot afford to be entitled. Most men in Rico, you know this. Most men, we just talked about this earlier. There's no space and grace for men to function in that level of vulnerability, because it's seen as weakness. So when we talk about the divorce and so forth, I could see one of the factors that contribute to that being the way we're socialized. Women are all about tapping into their emotions and discussing it and all of that type of stuff. And so they'll be like, you know what, I'm leaving his ass or whatever. A man will sit there. I mean, I'm talking about abuse, verbal abuse. Okay, where a woman is telling him he ain't shit, he's weak, right? His dick is small, he don't do her right. All of these things. And a man will sit through that and still will not go to the court. And then you find out they got divorced. And you know what you look at that as? Most women be like, well, what did he do? No, he sat there and took it for years. She just decided to get up and go and file. That's because of the way men and women are socialized in this society. That's a big part of it. Men are expected to take way more than women. That's just the way it is. And I think that's one of the factors, Rico. So I agree with you. It has to go both ways. It's not enough to just say women initiate more. We have to talk about why. And that's what I'm speaking to. Are we good? Okay, Abe, you wanted to say something, and then I want to wrap up, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Anita. Yeah, this thing. I wanted to touch on Rico's point. I'm sorry I didn't have a pen with me, so I couldn't write it down. But Rico said something to the effect of why. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think about what you said. Just help me out, Rico, real quick, and then let me respond to it.
Okay.
You were talking about the 69% in the study and the 80% study, and you were saying that some of these women. Oh, okay, I got my point. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
So what I'm saying to you is, oftentimes when you look at how men support each other and how women support each other, It's a little different. And sometimes when women support each other, when it comes to men, it can be kind of toxic. And what I'm saying, what I mean by that is, when a man is going through something with his wife, and they have children together, normally his friends or the males around him will say, "Hey man, you got to stick it out. It's cheaper to keep her. You don't want another man raising your kids. It's going to be the same no matter where you go, so you have to find a way to make it work." Women, on the other hand, they will say, for the smallest thing, "Girl, you need to leave him." And all you have to do is go on social media and look at it. When a man makes a complaint, everybody tells him, "Seek counseling, stay with it, hang in there, bro." When a woman complains for the smallest thing, "Girl, you need to leave him. Oh, it couldn't be me." They're surrounded by a lot of negativity. And that, to me, plays a major part when it comes to a lot of these women initiating divorce. It's because they're getting bad advice. I know for a fact that I've saved a few of my friends' marriages that were girls, that they were sizing their guy up because their guy didn't make the kind of money they wanted him to make. And they were looking at all these guys, because we all, six-figure folks. And so they're thinking that, "Hey, did I make a mistake with this person?" And I said, "Listen, you have to stay with this is the father of your child. You're going to leave this dude out of frustration over money. Get with somebody that's never going to love your child the way he's going to love your child. And leaving just for the sake of money, I don't know that that's a good thing." So I tried to not hit her over the head with a hammer, but I tried to encourage her to stick it out. And then over the course of 3-4 years, I mean, they got married. He's doing much better now. She didn't come to me and say thank you, but that's just my thing, man. I'm a pro marriage guy, and so I anytime I hear somebody talking about leaving, I'm always like, think about the kids, man. I mean, I think people are too quick. We live in a fast food culture, and we have that fast food mindset where people want to get married quickly and they want to get divorced quickly, and they don't think of the implications. They don't think of what happens to the kids and what happens to the community. And all I'm saying to you is, and I said this, and I'll wrap it up. I say this to a lot of my female friends: you have to be careful as a woman, the advice that you get from other women, because women are very cutthroat, and relationship envy is a real thing. Pregnancy envy is a real thing. Marriage envy is a real thing. These are things that men don't have to worry about. But a lot of women are not happy to see their friends happy sometimes, if I'm making any sense. I don't know if I'm making any sense to you, Rico, but I'm just laying out my case to you.
Let me say this, and hey, you hit a fucking home run.
Mhm.
I agree with every word you said, sir. Every word. I emphasize it 1,000 times. I've even lived it with an ex telling her, "All your friends don't wish well for you.
Mhm.
You got somebody they don't." Every word. I ain't hear a word you said. Now, I don't know what percentage that is. I'm not going to say that's all women or the majority, but yes, everything that you described is a real thing. Well, it was in my lifetime growing up. I've been happily married for the last 10 years, so it ain't my fucking problem no more. But I did live that the first 40, 50 years of my life. That made excellent sense. And I agree with every word. And if I could amp it up by 1,000, I would. That was all facts, sir. That was a mic drop. I ain't gonna say it's most of them, but mic drop.
Okay, thank you guys. So what I'm going to challenge you guys to give me before we leave out of here, and this might be more of a challenge for Ray than anybody else, or maybe even Abe, I don't know. But I know it probably won't be for Rico, but I challenge you guys right now to give me an alternative, because shame has been used over the years, and I do not think that it works. It did not work. It does not work for men, and it didn't work for men. It didn't work for you guys. And I don't think that it's going to work for us. So if we are to put that on the table as, yes, that's a possibility, I challenge you guys right now to come up with an alternative to shaming that is going to help too much. Because I agree, we have a lot of behavior modification that needs to happen in the collective. We cannot have our women out here misrepresenting the collective, twerking on restaurant tables. We just can't. We can't have it. So what do we do What is the alternative? Because shaming them, and a lot of, I said it earlier, you cannot shame the shameless. A lot of our women are in a place right now where they're shameless. They're numb to criticism. They don't care, right? And again, that's a maladaptive behavior, and it's rooted in trauma, right? There are a lot of us that are walking around here who are just numb. We don't care what Black men have to say because a lot of us don't respect Black men, right? And so knowing that, let's take shame off the table. This is the challenge. If we were to take shame off the table and I were to ask you before you leave this platform, give me an alternative to shaming, because shaming don't work. So let's take it off the table. I am going to start with Ray, aka Angry Man, on this one.
Raw.
I don't necessarily have that many alternatives. You know, I don't think we need to stop shaming. But who shames is the most important thing. Like we talked about the thug on the panel. If you have every so often you have a woman that is honest, and you could count them all on your hand. It's not like a whole bunch of them that would just give you hardcore facts. You could, over the course of my 41 years, I've added you to the list. So you are number 5. It's 5. I've known 5,000 women, and you are number 5 out of that 5,000 that don't mind giving everybody the work. All right. So when you find a woman like that, she needs to be voted into some sort of higher office, and she needs to represent women of all kinds and speak because they listen. That's the unfortunate truth. It's not important for a man to say it, even if I said the same thing. Hey, Black women are beautiful. They are this, is it. That was a compliment. But if you say, I won't call it Hanifa. If Hanifa says, hey, y'all need to get your shit together, all of y'all have bad behavior, guess what they'll do? They'll go, that's right. You are absolutely correct. I wish it. So the who says it, I think women need to hold women accountable, because anybody can hold a man accountable and he'll be held accountable. We do everything we can for y'all. So you can make us feel bad and we'll try to get our shit together. Men can get on our ass and we'll try to get our shit together because we're trying to impress y'all. But women are not made like that. The only people that women will really listen to, especially sisters, is other women. And I don't think it's our duty to do it because you don't care. The average sister doesn't care about what we have. And it's been said many times on the panel, and it's been particulars that it's been said to. But who says it? That's important. And I think it's your job. That's what I'm going to say is your job as a sister. For somebody who's so honest like that, I think you hold that responsibility, and people like you hold that responsibility to give those directives to your people.
Okay, so that's a good point. So you're saying it don't necessarily we shouldn't necessarily get rid of shaming, but we need to shift in who does the shaming.
That's right.
Am I hearing you correct? Okay. And I do agree. I still don't agree with you on not shifting from the shaming, right? Because I still think that shaming. I think shaming is damaging. However, I agree with you on the vessel. Who is doing it? Like who is doing the check-in? Who is saying, yo, let's get our shit together? I think that matters. And because of the dire situation that is at hand, like we're in a bad place right now. I just don't know that we are going to listen to each other anyway, because right now I think that Black men are in a place like where it's like, if you ain't coming to them correct, if you're not coming to them like respectfully, right, they're not hearing you, women, right? Because they have, like you said, we've been given the space to talk about you publicly for so long and beat you down, that now you guys have reached a place where it's like, yo, don't say one more word. Okay, now one more word. And I get that. And I think women need to recognize that, right? And see it for what it is. Face the reality that, yo, it's probably not a good idea for us to step to our men until we can fix that part of ourselves that have issues with our men. Because the reality is this: I can never talk to someone with respect who I don't respect. It's not going to happen. And that's what we're seeing in the spaces. So I agree with you on that, Ray. Where we disagree is the shaming. What we agree on is who talks to who about what. That matters. So I'm going to go ahead to Abe and then close out with Rico. Go ahead, Abe.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is we really need to work on our communication, and I've mentioned this before that there are four major communication issues. There's escalation, there's invalidation, there's negative interpretation, and there's conflict withdrawal. And even though women, women learn how to communicate far earlier than we do, I don't think that they're really good communicators when it comes to communicating with men. I think quite oftentimes women, when they converse with us, they converse from a position of powerlessness. They feel like victims. They feel not being heard, and so what they end up doing is sometimes they escalate the conversation, or they may invalidate. And I'll give you one example that I did want to talk to you, and I know you are sick and tired of talking about this one topic, but it's the topic of submission and how men look at it differently from how women look at it. Like some women, they feel like it's beneath them. They feel like you're talking about being subservient. Um, um, but to me, when you look at the conversation of submission, it's just the other side of the coin of protection. They're two sides of the same coin. You can't have protection without submission. And while you have the same women who will say the conversation about submission is beneath them, they'll make the arguments for protection. But you can't have one without the other. A country cannot protect its citizens if the citizens don't submit to the laws of that country or submit to the authority of that country. Um, Real quick, let's look at the etymology of the word protect. It comes from the Latin word pro tegere, right? Pro meaning in front, tegere means to cover. So we cover in front, right? And in order for us to cover in front, we have to lead you. In order for us to lead you, you have to submit to our leadership. And so this is the reason why I say that, we really need to work on how we communicate with each other, because sometimes we'll say one thing and women hear something else. And I know I've been rambling for long, so I'll go ahead and end there.
No, you fine. And you made a good point to submission. I would counter it, but I don't have the time. Um but you made a good point to it, to look at it as a different side of the coin of protection. That's a good way to put it. But I agree with you. We do have a communication problem, but a lot of it is that we just don't understand each other's wiring. The fact that they said women speak like 100 more words than men daily. You know what I'm saying? Like we when it comes to communication, when it comes to expression, when it comes to emoting, we have always had the privilege of having full access to a spectrum of emotions that you guys just did not have. Okay. And also chatting and talking a whole lot as well. We're just raised differently, we're wired differently. It's a nature, even the nature versus nurture. I think a lot of it is just the way that we're socialized as men and women, and being able to acknowledge that. And if you can acknowledge that, then you can actually move accordingly when dealing with the opposite sex. But I think what happens to us is that we just want to bogart our way into each other's space, right? And just be like, I'm just going to talk to you like a man. And we want to bogart ourselves into male spaces and be like, well, you're not making me feel like a woman. And it's like, but you're talking to a man and you're asking a man to show up as a woman so that they can communicate with you. And I think we're just missing each other in the whole, communication soup, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but I agree with you on that, Abe, and you made some good points. Rico, I'm going to give you the last say. I don't know if you forgot the question, but I would say that if we took shame off the table, that we had to come up with some other ways of how we can, get the outcomes that we want. If you can give me what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, that's kind of tough. I agree with both of the gentlemen here that, I mean, as a community, we do have problems and something needs to be done. So we don't disagree there at all. I see, like you said, I also agree with you, Hanifa, that, hell, how do you shame these young folks? I've tried it with my son, like in one ear, out the other. I mean, they're just like, they're resistant to it. It's almost
they do things. I mean, and because we're in this space where everything about being viral, and you see people now, young and older, doing things that normally we would be ashamed to do. They're doing online, trying to go viral. So I don't know if there's anything that's shameable anymore. I don't think shame has ever been effective in the first place. And now I almost think it just lost its power. I don't think there's anything. People are putting sex tapes out. People aren't ashamed of that. People are actually making sex tapes, trying to get famous. They just don't care. So if you think shame is going to work, God bless your little hearts. I just don't think it does. I suggested, and I don't even know if this will work, but I was like, okay, maybe, as a collective, we can start shunning certain behavior, because I wouldn't want to shun you, the person, but I would want to shun your bad behavior. Anytime Hanifa, as a collective or a society or a group of people, she come around here, she drinking too much, she's cursing too much, she's twerking too much. All of us as a collective, we shun her in that moment until she straighten up. I don't want to toss you out, but I want you to stop doing that behavior that looks unfavorably upon us as a collective. That's just an idea I just came up with. I just pulled that out of it. I don't know if we can be fixed. I think people just going to have to reach into their inner selves. I think maybe some of this viral stuff is just going to have to be a phase that we just got to pray to God that it burns out real quickly and people wake up one day and say, what the fuck are we doing? Because I don't know how we can legislate it or mandate that people, some of the worst people are the people that are the biggest, whether it's a celebrity or a rapper or a singer or an actress. It seems like the more, Kanye West or whoever it is, the more outlandish and ridiculous a person is, the bigger they become. And that's a reflection on us because we uplift these people. And I don't do it, but I'm still part of the collective that does it. So I can't dissuade it either. So I don't know. The little shunning thing is my...
Okay.
Yeah.
So in closing, I'm just gonna say this after listening to you guys. And by the way, I just want to tell you guys, thank you for joining me and having the conversation. I really appreciate it. I love talking to the men, because I love to hear you guys' perspective. It just helps me to grow in my consciousness as a woman. And so I do appreciate that masculine input. I would say to the question I asked you guys, Rico, I actually think that it starts with the training ground, which is the family, which is the nuclear family, which is the traditional family. I think that parenting, I think that having the two parents in the household to bring that masculine feminine balance is important. And when I say the training ground, that is where you learn your morality. That's where you are given a moral compass. The issue is a big part of it is the breakdown in our family units. And so people are leaving home without any moral compass, and therefore they have no moral direction, right? And if they get on these platforms and there are rewards for bad behavior, they will partake. Ray talked about incentives. As long as those incentives exist, people will continue, okay, to act badly. So when you're on social media and you get those likes, for example, women, when they see a woman doing something and it's like, girl, you beautiful, girl. I mean, we go in with all of the affirmations. We affirm the shit out of bad behavior, right? Because that's kind of our makeup is how we approach things, like more like in a nurturing way, even and to the point where I just think that women, we're kind of like socialized to lie a lot. You know what I'm saying? We're socialized to like speak to egos, and even if it's not true, just make the person feel better. And I feel like we do that a lot with each other. So I think if we can actually stop doing that, raise our girls and our boys and give them some standards and some guidance, so that when they leave their home, they are not out there conducting themselves. I think the root of, or the focus of modification has to start within the family structure. But our families are so broken down to where you have mothers trying to teach young boys how to be men, and that is impossible. She does not have what it takes to make a boy into a man. Okay? So it starts at home. That would be my solution. We need to figure out a way how we can stay coupled, and to Abraham's point, to stay coupled. Be pro-marriage, be pro-family, because being pro-marriage is being pro-family. Keeping the marriage together is keeping the family together, right? And men having a say and women having a say and giving the children direction is going to eliminate a lot of things. I think a lot of what we're seeing in our collective is the breakdown in our family. That's all it is. It's a reflection of that. The young girls have no structure in the home. The young boys have no structure in the home. So they're just out here being lawless. And who provides structure, Rico? Where does structure come from? It comes from men.
Their father, yeah.
It comes from their fathers.
Yep.
Okay, women learning how to properly, because we're going to be emotional. You know, that's the big thing. Women are emotional. Or we're going to be emotional. But men teach us how to regulate those emotions. Men teach that. And so you have a lot of women who don't have that regulation in the home. Emotions are not bad. Emotions serve a purpose. But you cannot just be out there allowing your emotions to control you. And that has to come from the masculine. Only the masculine can teach that. That's a fact. So you have women growing up in single mother homes that don't know how to regulate their emotions, and they're out here keying cars and flattening tires and burning people clothes up because their feelings are hurt and their heart is broken. Then you have men out here straight up arguing online. I mean, arguing, veins coming out their necks with women till they're red in the face. Men don't do that. And you could tell that they didn't have an example of a man because their mamas argue with men their whole life. And so they think that dynamic is okay because their mamas raised them. So we have to figure out, how do we get our families back on track? Otherwise, like Ray said, this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. So it starts there. That would be my solution or alternative to shaming. We have to start giving our children a moral compass again. And let me tell you something. The single parent household is not going to be fixed overnight. I think that what we need to focus on a lot more, and this is for another day, is we need to start focusing on the traditional families. Stop kicking your children out at 18 years old simply because they graduated high school. Stop putting your mothers and these grandparents in old people homes, okay, because you have a career that you want to. You understand what I'm saying? All of these energies contribute to a healthy collective, and I think we need to get back to that. I think there needs to be more conversations around that until we can catch up with the rates of single parent household. We need to tap into the community, right? And to the traditional family, the grandmas, the aunties, the uncles. Everybody needs to come together because, like Ray said, this is desperate times. It calls for desperate measures. So if a bunch of y'all need to buy some property and get a house or have some small houses on that property where you can actually engage in the traditional family functioning in a healthy way, then those are things that we must consider, because the individualistic mindset is working to our detriment. It's destroying us from the inside out. So that's my contribution to that. That's my alternative. And I want to say, because I have a family and I got to go, I want to tell you guys, thank you for joining me. And I'm going to go ahead. Rico, I appreciate you always. I love having conversations with you.
Can I shame Ray for that name, Angry Man?
Shame, shame, shame.
Nice talking to you, Ray. But don't come up with that Angry Man name no more.
Rico, I'm gonna reach out to you about something that's been weighing on me. So I'll reach out to you so we can kind of
email for my private contacts.
Yeah, I'm gonna I've talked to you before on Instant Messenger, so I'm gonna reach out there.
And I'm traveling in 2 days. I'm going to the island.
When are you coming back?
September 4th. I'll be there.
Okay, I can wait. I can wait.
But
I
you
can
can reach
wait.
me over there. I'll be messing around from time to time when I'm sober.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully I catch you on one of your sober times, but I will call you and we can process it. Ray, this is my first time on my panel. I hope I wasn't too much, and I appreciate you so much for passing through.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I had to come on your show because you
Thank you. And Abe, thank you for passing through as well and supporting me in multiple ways and your encouragement. in pushing me to engage in these conversations more. I really appreciate you, brothers. I love you guys. I think you guys are beautiful, and I am going to see you guys tomorrow. All right.
All right.
Peace. Let me talk to my audience. I'm gonna let you guys go down.
All right.
All righty. Bye bye. Let's see. So, I want to say thank you to you guys that tuned in, that joined the conversation, and that fully engaged in the conversation. I wanted to get to a lot of the other questions and comments, but I wasn't able to because I really wanted to allow the men to complete their thought. And that's important. And so I just thank you guys for rocking with me. I hope you guys got something out of the conversation. I know I did. I have a lot to go continue to think about. I wanted to say that one of the things that I talked about earlier was the role of women in society much before patriarchy came in. I could just recommend some books. So I have this one book. It's called Mami Wata, and it's Africa's Ancient Goddess Unveiled. And this is written, I think, by an African American woman. So if you guys are interested, I know it's not showing up on the camera good, but it's called Mami Wata. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Now, this book here is also another book that I've read as well. It's called When God Was a Woman. Now, this particular book, a lot of feminists read it. It was a really good read. After a while, it became a little bit repetitious for me, so I eventually put it down. But I got what I needed to get out of it. And this is written by Merlin Stone. She is a white lady, and it's called When God Was a Woman. That has helped me as well in my studies, and I'm still studying, you guys. And right now, my current read. Oh, how can I forget? The one and only Sheikh Anta Diop. Okay, one of my favorite anthropologists, and he is from out of Africa. I want to say Sierra Leone, and this is called The Cultural Unity of Black Africa, and it's the domains of matriarchy and of patriarchy in classical antiquity. And this is Sheikh Anta Diop. If you haven't heard about him, you should check him out. This is a really good book because it really discusses just how a lot of the societies that was focused like on that was a little bit more sedentary and focused on agriculture and so forth, in comparing them with the more nomadic groups of people, and the differences, and kind of like how patriarchy entered certain parts of Africa and what it looked like before. This pushes way more for the egalitarian approach that I talked about earlier. So this book here definitely brings in the balance, and it's by Sheikh Anta Diop. You guys might have to come back to the video because I'm gonna have to put this in the description because I pulled these out at the last minute. But this is a really good read as well. It's a short read, but it's really good. And the last one is, and I can't really vouch for this one yet. I'm reading it. It's called The Chalice and the Blade, by Riane Eisler. This is another white lady. I am reading this one currently. You see my marker is in there. So I just started this one. And it seems to be pretty good so far. So the way that I kind of like glean my information, and I use the word glean, I find books. If I'm led to study a subject, I find different books, ones that I might not really agree with, and others that I have my favorite authors like Sheikh Anta Diop. I respect his work and so forth, right? And so I might have a bias there. So I try to find books that, kind of like challenge that bias. So those are just some of the books that I use in my study, as far as the role or the function of women in society and the function of men in society, and how it's kind of always been. So that's that. And I just want to say again, thank you guys. I see that you guys enjoy the conversation. And until next time, meet me here Friday at 5 p.m. We're going to have another great conversation. I just want to tell you guys peace and blessings, and that I love everyone, and see you guys next time. Peace.